All right, and start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. I'm your host, Spin, and this is the period where summer football really does kick into gear, and we will be driving in what happened in the U.S. game. It wasn't it wasn't really pretty. So we'll get into that. Maybe do a little mini U.S. preview of what's to come with Copa America, and I also have a mini Euros preview planned to go as well. Go over maybe a few of the favorites, how the groups maybe shape up, who I think will do well, and maybe could struggle, and plus maybe a little segment where like who could be maybe a breakout star, who's like a young player to look at. I have a couple to mention there as well. Someone like that's under 22 that maybe wow, certainly a lot of contenders there. But leading off, I will get started with USA and Colombia. So the first of really two big warm-ups before Copa America. It's Berhalter under the scope again. Chance for him to maybe prove some doubters wrong. Frankly, we haven't played a decent 90 minutes under him since, we beat Canada. That was without Berhalter, if you remember. That was with BJ Callahan in the Nations League final. And then we had like a Gold Cup after that, and Berhalter like joined after the Gold Cup. And we lost like the first game he joined, or like the second game we joined. We did not win that Gold Cup from what I remember. And so, how has things been under Berhalter? That'll be another thing I do as well after I go over the the Colombia game. Just kind of look at how we've been since he's been rehired as because it I don't think I was the only one that was against him returning, and I'm not going to say that he's proven all the doubters right. But I will say that the track record isn't necessarily against him, and it's not all on him. I'm going to say that I'm not necessarily going to go with the players. I am going to say that his selection has been a part of it, but it's just been the people that have been responsible for his hiring. The way that we have media that has been kind of talking up this team as the greatest generation ever. There's been a lot of kind of misleading ways that this team has been covered, and that can be part of it as well. But I'm not going to let him get off the hook. I'm going to say that too. So getting off, we lose 5-1. I do think the score is a little harsh, and there's some explanation I think to maybe it being a little worse than what it did. It didn't look like a 5-1 game to me. But we lose. We let two get in early with Arias, and then Bore made it 2-0 after like an overhead kick. Usually, it's not a good sign when someone scores an overhead kick on you. And then in the second half, we got one back with Weah. It felt like we did a decent job responding after we went down 2-0. Now, Colombia also allowed us to have the ball, so there was some of that as well. And then Berhalter made some changes in the second half that really did lead to our downfall. We just were not able to to play with the ball at the back. And we basically just had three bad giveaways that led to three quick goals after like the 75th minute. So first with Rios and then Carrascal. Both that were second half subs for Colombia, so Colombia made some pretty good changes on them, and then Sinisterra with the fifth goal, who also came off as a sub. So that's just kind of setting up how what happened. So how did it happen and why did it happen? So again, this was a chance for Berhalter to finally play like a big team because we haven't had many of those since the World Cup, since Qatar, and I think one of the things that was weird to me is one of the reasons that was explained or defended why Berhalter was brought back because people used what we did in Qatar. I don't think we had a good tournament in Qatar. Now we advanced in the group stage. We drew England to a 0-0 game. We struggled versus Wales, and then we struggled versus Iran. And then the first team we played that actually was good, we got kind of clobbered versus the Netherlands, and we got clobbered because we didn't into that game with basically without a striker. Jeff's Sargent wasn't able to go; he was injured. Pulisic was basically you know injured as well, and he gave up a heroic performance, but he wasn't fully himself. And we went into we basically went into it guns a blazing, and we played fullbacks really high. It was aggressive. They played with wingbacks, and they were able to counter on us with real ease. And we went into that game. I think we started with Jesus Ferreira because Sargent couldn't go, and just that entire time I was just thinking, well, with one game you finally need a striker. In someone like Pepe, you left at home. And so there's just, and then we find out that the stuff about Gia Reyna not playing, and then finally he has to play. or he gets to play in the Netherlands game when we're down 2-0. And so it was like, here, kid, come on, save us. Let's see what you're worth. I didn't like the way that was handled. And then we find out all the stuff that happened in the background. So I don't necessarily need to go through all of that. But I didn't think he was worthy of getting a second go at it. To be honest, there were questions during qualifying. The way that he was using calling in players to different camps, it was never good. It really wasn't. And for all this talk about this being the greatest collection of players that we've ever had, I think there can be a case for that. You see what we're doing in Europe with a lot of our stars, but that's kind of the thing. Our stars are doing well in Europe, but we don't really have a bench. And I think what's happened here is you just saw it with the subs. Once Gia came off, we did not have a way to play in midfield. We looked lost. We've been missing Tyler Adams for a number of these games. And Johnny Cardoso played a good game, but is he enough? If Tyler Adams can't go, Johnny Cardoso is the only kind of six holding DM kind of midfielder that we have, unless you want to call Jonas Musa that. And I don't think that is good. I don't think that's good depth. There's a couple of There's going to be a lot of games, a lot of minutes, quickly. Can Cardozo handle that all by himself? I don't really know if he can. So without Tyler Adams, that could be a problem. And then we've seen, recently uh, when other subs have happened, the back line was changed up a little bit and we struggled there. So I don't necessarily know if we are as good as everyone's been kind of talking us up to be, and we just got to really get a wake up call versus Colombia. So I guess you can say it is good that it happened now. It is good that you can say most of the goals and most of the disappointment happened after Gia came off. So maybe Gia can just not be subbed off. I mean, Pulisic only played, a half, as well. So, there can be some reasons for hopium, as they say, but it still it wasn't good. I'm not going to argue that it was. I'm not going to cherry coat this. But I also am going to say none of this is that surprising. We were not good, leading up to this. The Mexico final aside, we had to have a very late minute, the last minute in like the 96th minute, header just to beat Jamaica in the Nations League, and that was a game that Giorena did not start. Came on in the second half, and all of a sudden, hey, we started playing again. Look at that. We haven't had Serginho Dest for a couple of these games, and we look lost without his involvement, without his link of play, his runs, and whatnot. So, and that was an issue as well. But Scally did a very good job on Luis Diaz defensively. But when Scally had the ball, it's almost like they were kind of baiting him to have the ball, and we weren't really able to create with him there. Through our attack through the middle has been just kind of a. We've never really had a consistent style of playing. At least when Giorena hasn't been playing. Giorena seems the only one that can recognize when to play a through ball to play Balogun. It is almost. I don't want to use this example, but it's hard for me not to. It's very similar to how, like Man City and Holland with Kevin De Bruyne. We don't recognize how to play in Balogun when he makes his runs, and instead we try to cross balls into him essentially from out wide, and it doesn't feel like he's that kind of striker. If we're going to play that way, it's fine, but I think you need to play almost Pepe instead. He's better at that, in my opinion. And there have been a few times when Pepe has come on and actually saved us. I think he saved us versus Jamaica. Uh, there was another game, maybe it was Trinidad and Tobago. I think he came on as a very late sub, and that game was also scoreless. We ended up winning 3-0, but we got the first goal in like the 82nd minute or so. So there haven't it hasn't been great, to say the least. And I think there's been all this talk that everything has been building up to 2026, and I don't like that mindset at all. We don't have we're having a once in a lifetime opportunity twice, basically. You don't get to host big tournaments like this in a row, and we should have been looking at this World Cup honestly like our World Cup, not as a trial run or warm up or whatever the phraseology has been used. We need to look at this as the real thing, and the preparation I don't think has been stellar. And going into this, we don't seem to be that good. But that said, we normally do overperform. So maybe at least we normally I shouldn't say that. We normally do at least reach expectations under Berhalter. So maybe that'll happen. I'm expecting us to the first team that we play that's actually good. will clap us. But and we have Uruguay in the group, so you're looking at the way that Colombia was able to get in behind our high line, the way we press. We don't play pragmatic, and we're playing with Tim Ream. I like Tim Ream, but at this point in time, you can't play the way that Berhalter likes playing because we press high and our press is good. It's been praised by British pundits. To be honest, like when we played England, they praised us on how almost we were so organized and so well drilled. We were almost like a club team. That's for the international team. That is a very international game. That is a high compliment to hand out. But that said, to do that and to do that, throughout a whole game, throughout 90 minutes, it requires you to play a high defensive line as well. Your defenders have to be aggressive. Tim Ream can't offer that anymore. And I think the problem here is it's not just as easy as not playing Tim Ream because as we saw in this game, once Chris Richards was switched off to the left side of the field, I don't think he has a left foot. So I think he can play, sideways passes. I don't think he can actually boot a ball upfield with his left foot. At least that's what I saw in this game. I haven't noticed when I've watched him on Palace if that's the case as well, because usually he plays on the left side in the center in a back three for Palace, at least this season. Uh, so I'm guessing maybe when they go long, when they do try to find Eze or someone making a switch, it's either Tyreek Mitchell that they use, or it's maybe it's Anderson. I'm guessing that Richards isn't the outball that they play. Because in this game, every time he got the ball, the first thing he wanted to do was get it back on his right foot. And I think Colombia recognized that, and I think that led to a little of our downfall. So that's kind of just setting it all up. I don't want to give it all away. So just looking at the lineups, we had Scally, Richards, Ream, Robinson, probably what you would expected. I probably would have preferred Richards and Miles Robinson, to be honest, to start. But I mean that is what it is. Ream is going to. It looks like Ream's going to be our main starter for any big game that we have. You could think back to Mexico. Ream did start as well, so it just seems like Berhalter likes his leadership, and at least he has a left foot. But he doesn't have the ability to cover a lot of ground, and that led to the first goal. Johnny, then Gio, and then McKinney. And I do think when you first saw the lineup, you it would have been Gio as the 10 and McKinney next to Johnny and kind of a double pivot. It wasn't that. McKinney was weirdly playing further upfield, and I don't think that suited him. I think he struggled for the entire game, and it worked out because Gio was quite good at this kind of role. Uh, but personally, I think he's better being as a number 10, being a little further advanced. And the times when we had our best moments, it was when Gio was getting the ball in the final third, not being the connector to advance the ball in the final third. So someone like a Yunus Musa, in my opinion, would do better in that kind of role, and then maybe not have McKinney. Or the opposite idea could be, and this would be experimenting, and it's unfortunate that we only have one more game to experiment, and it's not good to experiment before a tournament. I would maybe try McKinney at right back. And this isn't just my idea. I had someone that I follow on Twitter that actually mentioned it, that I really liked. I didn't think about it at the time, but then there was a game when Liverpool tried Curtis Jones almost at right back because they had no one else, and the way that he was able to invent or to invert, it made sense. He was quite good, and McKinney has played wing back ish for for Juventus, or he plays out wide as a wide midfielder at times, and it looks like he's more comfortable playing out wide. He's got a good delivery on him as well, got a good cross on him that we've seen in the past, and I just don't think he's works really good in midfield. And so that's a way to get him on the field. And Scally, played all right, played very good defensively. But that said, I would maybe like him to honestly maybe be on the left, and maybe we go to almost like a back three in possession. Maybe that takes Robinson out of the picture. And unfortunately for us, Robinson did not have his best game in this game. And the one thing you can say is maybe that was a one-off. Normally, he's actually our best player in some respects, and so he was just off it. So is that going to be? Can that be something you could just write off? Which would, if it is, that could really help us out because then maybe this only is a one-off, and we won't actually look like this. Because Robinson being bad was the catalyst to almost everything. To be honest, that led to at least 2 or 3 goals. To be honest, and it didn't help that Ream, when Robinson lost the ball, had absolutely nowhere to go. And sometimes I think for the 5th goal, we lose the ball where Robinson is just really high upfield, and that forces Musa. Maybe it's like the 4th goal. That forces Musa to have to shift over, and Musa doesn't do a good enough job defending out wide on the wing. Uh, But that's just kind of setting up, and then the front three was Weah, Balogun, and Pulisic. Probably what you would have expected. So nothing, no changes there. The other option I guess was maybe Weah as kind of a right back to just kind of offer runs. He's probably the closest we have to Dest in that respect. But as you see, as you see in this game, Way is actually quite good for us, going forward. And what's weirdly enough is he we play him out wide to be almost like a wide creator at times. But again, Balogun's not that kind of forward to create for something into the box. Balogun looks to be someone to kind of just either do some layoffs off to combine in the box. Now Balogun has a good shot on him, but I think playing Way kind of closer inside the box helps us a little bit more. And so these are just kind of the thoughts that I had, just even pregame, and then as we watched it, I had more of these thoughts. So that's kind of where we are. Also, the thing with Robinson is the way we play him. Usually, he honestly basically is our winger, and that allows Pulisic to play a little bit more in the half space. But so you're playing your fullback really high upfield, and by doing that, yeah, you can sometimes have some decent numbers advantages. Basically, our best chances in the first half came from Robinson, getting the ball out wide, doing a nice little run, and then getting a cross off. He had a cross to Pulisic that almost that basically hit the post. I think, but all he can really do is cross the ball. I've liked Robinson. I've praised him a number of times. I've seen him very similar to what Liverpool's Andy Robinson is, but he's also very one-dimensional. And what's weird is I think he can be a better defender than he's shown. I think he showed that versus Canada when he was asked to be a little more defensive-minded. But when he goes forward, he's going to go down the wing and he's going to try to cross something off. And again, the way we play with Balogun, it's not the best way to play him. So I mean, there are other people to try there. Scally, as mentioned, or I like this guy Lund, I believe, who played in the Ghana game, who showed me something. Maybe there's a little more all around his game, but we haven't seen any of him. I know he actually did make the final roster cut. But again, there've been times to experiment, and we haven't been able to. Now, another part of that, we haven't had many windows, and one of the games that we had Serginho Dest, and he just had to get a red card. So that didn't necessarily help us either. But because of that, we have had a chance to see us play without Serginho Dest. We tried Skylight right back for Jamaica, was not good. That did not go well. In that game, we conceded because he let someone basically get a header on him on the back post. And in this game, I think for the second goal, Scally is the one that's beaten in the air. Now he's going against a center back. I think it's Davinson Sanchez, so you can't really go at him on that. But it's just it is what it is. It hasn't when we haven't had Dest, it is shown, and that is a big problem coming into this Copa. Is not having him. We've got a broken right side. Someone like Berhalter or BJ Callahan, someone needs to sort that out quickly. And the reason why I kind of laugh at that is I think one of the reasons that Berhalter has gotten somewhat decent results has been the players themselves have someone shelled out and performed quite well uh, under him, at least in moments, at least when they've had to. I don't really think there's been a game when a Berhalter has had to make a change, like a halftime sub change, where he's actually improved or he's actually won a game himself. So, does he have the ability to make adjustments? I don't know if he does. So that'll be under the microscope as well. And then we see what Colombia went with Munoz, Sanchez, Loomis. I can't say all these names. Mojica was quite good. Munoz and Mojica, their two fullbacks were very good. Jefferson Lerma, then Uribe, and Uribe was taken off in the second half for Rios, and Rios we saw score. Then Jaimes Rodriguez, we hadn't seen him in a while. And another thing that's kind of funny, like looking at these names. So Aribe, Jaimes, Bore, I believe, and Arias, and even some of the guys that came on in the on the bench. A lot of these players play in South America, so we can't just use the whole uh, uh, only having players playing in Europe or having or guys need to necessarily play in the MLS. Or guys only need to play in certain leagues. This team had a couple of players playing in a South American league, and it didn't necessarily hurt them. and then Arias, Bore, and Luis Diaz. And Luis Diaz did a little bit of everything in this game. I saw Liverpool's Luis Diaz. I saw Porto's Luis Diaz. I saw Colombia's Luis Diaz in this game. And I think the Silver score wasn't very kind to him. I think he had a pretty good game, to be honest. And just he had that one chance in the second half to really put it away before even Berhalter made his changes. And he did what he did to Hudds with Liverpool. He got into the box and had to try something with his left foot and just got unlucky. Just hit the post and missed. But it is what it is. So kind of getting started with what happened in the first half. So the observation early on to me is after a few attacks, Anthony Robinson is being forced to cover two people. So Munoz is doing very well as the fullback to make some runs as well with the winger Arias, and also Jaime is running to that side to get to the ball as well. Pulisic isn't helping out, and that's going to be a problem that I speak about later on. Pulisic does not help us when it comes out of possession. Doesn't track his man at all. I thought that was an issue versus the Netherlands as well. I keep seeing it. Whenever I see Pulisic play for us, I see it, and usually, the way we're playing Gio, we didn't have a midfielder that was able to do that job either, and too often Robertson was forced into too many 2v1s, even 3v1s, which isn't ideal, to say the least. I thought Colombia was looking to maximize that early, and then we see it basically for the goal. So again, they bully Robinson a bit. He's worried about a run inside, getting past Ream, so he has to cheat to worry about Ream, but he's also aware of Munoz standing on the far touchline. A ball is played into the box by Jaime, trying to find Bore in behind Ream and Robinson. Robinson makes a mess of it. He tries to he recognizes what's happening, tries to intercept it, and gets unlucky. To be honest, he just can't control it. The ball sneaks past him, and then Ream can't recover in the time either to top the shot off, and Turner is beaten near post. Not the way to start. But also the goal really comes because of the ball that Jaime plays. And that's what a number 10 does. This is kind of a note I have as well. They look to play those threaded in balls in the box to create. Not everyone has this eye for a pass, but this is what maybe Jaime doesn't really do a lot out of possession or not. But you get in the final third as a locksmith. That I look at number 10s these days as locksmiths, basically. The Brunos, the Kevin De Bruyne's, and what have you, Christian Eriksen's, Modric, maybe not Modric. Modric is just all around good. But anyways, that's kind of where I'm getting at. So here it is just a terrific ball that he plays. They get a goal because they created a danger moment in the box, and if you don't deal with it properly, this is what happens. You pay. And then we have a chance here where Robinson has the ball over the top, picks up Balogun, making a run. It's really the one time that we actually found Balogun making a run, and he does a decent job to actually get around the keeper, tries to get a shot off, and it's just cleared off the line by I think Davinson Sanchez running back. And then we have a chance for Colombia. I don't really know what the minute is. Crossing to Bora, he just misses, but again, we're not doing well to overload, or we're not doing well with the overload happening on that side. So James, Munoz, Arias, even Diaz was leaving from the left spot to come onto the right side, just overloading, overcooking that side, just creating a numbers mismatch every single time, and we couldn't do anything with it. And here, so even before that, and they get the second goal, almost kind of similar, but even before that, I guess after that, Tim Ream makes a meal of things here. So Tim Ream didn't do his best, I think, for the first goal. It's not really his fault. It's just more of a situation of he just didn't have the legs to recover when he needed to. And in here, he makes a mess of things where he dallies on the ball and loses it and creates a turnover. Colombia quickly turn it into attack. The ball is crossed in, and if not for Johnny Cardozo, this is probably a goal anyways as well. Instead, they get a corner kick, and they take it short, and the ball is crossed in. We do a decent job to win the header. But then on the second, Davinson Sanchez outjumps Scally, falls to Uribe, and he goes for the audacious overhead kick and pulls it off, unfortunately. And so 2-0, well, how will we respond? We actually responded well. So we have a chance here. Robinson cross finds Pulisic's head, strikes a post, but basically a half chance that the Pulisic actually turned it into a pretty good chance. Little give and go by Pulisic and Robinson here, just kind of created. So a little pass and move action. Nearly came off, but also like here, Gio Reyna gets the move started because he wins the ball back with a challenge. It's easy to forget he's a big body. I think he's 6'1", and we don't use that enough. To be honest, I don't think Nottingham Forest uses that enough. And then we have a chance here, 41 minute. Pulisic cross nearly finds Weah or Balogun in the back post. So a long switch by McKinney. Finds Pulisic isolated with Munoz, beats him 1v1. So it gets past Munoz finally. Has a good cross off. And then we do well to actually keep the ball in the final third because Johnny Cardoso keeps winning some challenges to prevent some counters. So Johnny Cardoso does a good job here. And we're doing a decent job to actually get Colombia to go long. So after we went down a goal, or after we went down 2 goals, it seemed like we played a little bit better. We got into the game a little bit more. Colombia wasn't really able to get any more looks, to be honest. Now they were also sitting off and kind of just waiting for us to make a mistake. Uh, but we were also doing well when we lost the ball, our counter press was better to win it back. I thought we did a better job of getting numbers near the ball, and I thought for the most part on plays that were stopped, on goal kicks and whatnot, we did a very good job to force Colombia to go long, and then we were winning the ball after it bounced. So there was at least some of that. Then again, the only times where we didn't get the press right or lost the duel, they were able to find Luis Diaz out in space to try to hurt us, and so that actually comes up here with the kind of a late chance in the first half. So it looks like we're going to finish the half okay, and then Colombia gets a last counterattack to maybe they probably should have put away. So Uribe slides to stop Anthony Robinson's pass, so it's really good anticipation there, and then. They basically they break down on the far side of the field with Mojica. Mojica, the fullback. Luis Diaz runs to the ball, and so they follow him, and then they play. So it's almost like a disguise run. And then Mojica gets the ball, and then instead Luis Diaz sprints, is able to get into the box, and Mojica's cross finds Luis Diaz, and he does a well to at least collect it. But we have decent defenders in possession to stop it, so they aren't able to do anything. I think the ball is recycled. It goes back to Mojica, and then he sees that. It's Uribe. Uribe is making a late run into the box. Robinson's already marking someone, and so this basically the run is going behind him. Robinson has to be again mark two people at once. And Mojica gets a very good cross off. It goes over everyone. It finds Uribe, and if his first touch or if he goes with this with his head, I think they'd probably get the third goal. Turner would have had to make a save at minimum, and it would have been from really close range. As long as the shot would have been away from Turner, I think they probably would have scored here. So uh, we did well to get back in the game, but like that one moment was a problem, and that is a theme that I have seen following this team for a couple of years now. Is there too often, especially from that side. There's a ball that's very easy for them to cross in where someone makes a disguise run, a completely unmarked back post, and we don't have a way to deal with it. I believe even in the Netherlands for their third goal, where it was like Daley Blind had a cross off to someone where they scored, very similar to that. So we haven't been able to figure that out, and still haven't. So halftime thoughts again. Bad start or not, there were some positive signs after the 20th minute mark. Now, some of that was also them allowing us to have the ball, but we did a decent job to turn them over as the game went on. And I thought we did a better job of winning it back. We did when we lost it, we actually had a decent job of having a counter press. I think the one thing that was an issue was sometimes we would win it back, and then we would try for the home run ball and maybe just give it turn ball right over ourselves. So we weren't doing a good enough job to actually keep it at times, and maybe to be a little bit more patient. But for the most part, there were some things to at least explain away. Even though the scoreline wasn't great, it is a friendly. As long as at this point, a friendly before a tournament, you have 2 goals, in my opinion. Don't get any injuries. Maybe experiment a few things. Maybe just get some minutes into some legs. Try to get players on that you need to see them perform in a different kind of environment. The scoreline usually doesn't really matter as long as it's competitive, essentially, and it was until the second half. Another thing too was James wasn't that influential after the 2 goals, and he doesn't really do defensive work. Can you maybe exploit that a little bit? It looked like we tried to do, but the damage was also done as well. The Colombia again were fine with us having the ball for the most part and just looking to hit us on the counter. And as we saw just at the very end, we had a lot of the ball for the last 15 minutes or so, and all it took was just one ball over the top to either Mojica or Luis Diaz, and we were in trouble. And that happened in the second half as well. And so Colombia, I thought they were looking to target Anthony Robinson. I don't know if it was because of him specifically. Now, everyone knows that he makes bombing runs, and you've got if he's out of position, you've got Tim Ream. I'm thinking teams literally look to exploit that, to be honest. But also, I thought Luis Diaz was interesting how they were playing him as well. He was making runs through the middle, on the right side, and on the left. He was kind of everywhere. Now, Scally was doing a good job to hang with him when he was making runs on the left side. But for the most part, Luis Diaz was kind of their everything, and that didn't change in the second half as well. Uh, and let's see. So we get off to the second half. Early changes for us. So Pulisic off, Haji Wright on, to give us a little different look. I really did like this. This is not something we have seen necessarily for Berhalter, and this kind of goes to what I'm saying. You need to save minutes in Pulisic's legs. He's had a long European campaign for AC Milan, and you need to see what Haji Wright can maybe do for you. And I liked the idea of Haji Wright and Balogun, and I liked the idea of Haji Wright, Balogun, and Tim Weah because we saw a little bit more in the second half where all three of them were looking to play closer together than necessarily being out wide. Haji White was to me making runs from the left side. He was doing more to be into the box than necessarily, or even being ahead of Balogun at moments, and just it wasn't necessarily something that Pulisic was doing. And again, a different kind of look. I liked it, and I don't necessarily know if we'll see it again, but at least it's something to think about. Maybe try Pulisic on the right side, and maybe versus Brazil. See if he can maybe do that job as well. Because I don't really know what we're gonna do if Tim Weah gets tired. We don't seem to have any idea who to replace on that right side. Maybe it can be Balogun, maybe Drew Haji right through the middle. I don't really know. It does feel like we're kind of limited in our attacking options if someone gets tired or injured, and I do worry a little bit about that as well. And then Colombia brought on Rios for Uribe. So we have an early Haji Wright impact here. So there's a great switch ball by Richards, finds Haji Wright. Now Richards is in the beginning playing with on the right side. He's a beautiful ball with his right foot. Long ball to find Wright. So good pass here. He does. Then Wright does a pretty good job to dribble past two players. So showing some confidence, showing some pretty good pace and skill, and then he plays it out wide to Robinson. Robinson's offside, so nothing comes from this, but decent. And then we get a free kick. He has a header. He gets the end of the header, scores the goal. Some positive there, and then Johnny Cardozo tries a long ball to play in, Weah making a run behind. That's defended well, but Wright is in place to get the ball after it's headed away. And again, I liked the idea that he was almost playing directly behind Balogun in moments, and we don't always see this kind of stuff from Berhalter. So I thought this was positive. And then Gio Reyna and McKennie have a little 1-2 with each other in the middle of the field. Weah then has Gio Reyna has a ball, a through ball that finds Wright and a better first touch. I think he's in on goal. And unfortunately, the touch was heavy. If this is Pulisic, probably is a better outcome. This is maybe the one thing you can go at Wright a little bit for. Could have been just kind of rust. To be honest, it's not easy to come off as a sub. It was unfortunate though. A better first touch. I think he would have been in on goal. He would have either been able to go at goal, or he could have had a tap into to Balogun. But this was nearly really good by Raya and McKennie. We didn't see enough of this from McKennie in my point of view. But also, it is just a terrific through ball by Gio Reyna, and it doesn't feel like anyone else in the team. Maybe Pulisic can do this. At least in midfield, has that kind of pass in his locker. And once Raya went off, our team went off. So, but there is starting to be at least reasons to be optimistic. Maybe US can get back into the game, and then they do. 57 minutes with Tim Weah, and again we started the second half better. A bit like we ended with the first half, in my opinion. Seemed to sustain a little bit more attacks. We were playing well to get through their midfield traps. We weren't really turning the ball over. I thought Gio Reyna was certainly helping in that department, as was Johnny Cardoza. And here we have a little end product finally to show for that good work. So Johnny and Gio work together to advance the ball upfield. Gio has the ball, plays a sideward pass to find Weah next to him. It seems like it should be kind of easy to do, but it's not the easiest pass to pull off. Gio Reyna kind of does it maybe even a no look, and he does it with a side foot. But Weah does really as well to quickly turn, and then he sees that Balogun is open on the right side of the field. At this point, Haji Wright is actually the striker in this point in time. So Haji Wright is also like a 6'2", 6'3", maybe even, kind of a beast, and he's a threat. And so what he's doing is he's making the center backs gravitate to him, and so Haji Wright is able to go 1v1 basically with a fullback, and Gio Reyna passes it to Balogun, and then Tim Weah passes it to Balogun, and then Weah, to his credit, makes the sprint, a pass and move again, to make sure that he can be an outlet if Balogun needs it. And what he Balogun does, Balogun waits for him to cross him, and then has the absolute perfect weight on the pass. If this is hit a little too hard, the angle's probably too far where he can't go for goal. And the keeper comes out, but he can't come out enough to close off the angle. It's the perfect weight by Balogun, and you just see the quality that Balogun possesses when he can get touches in the box. We just weren't able to do that enough, and it's a terrific finish by Tim Weah, who is making an argument in my respect that he could possibly be our best finisher in the team. We saw him score a couple of 1v1 goals for us in Qatar. And there've been a couple of times when he just kind of shows up. He doesn't score a lot, but he just feels like he scores in moments when we really need to change the game, essentially. And he's not everyone's cup of tea for some reason. And I think the reason is we don't use him properly, in my opinion. But he was fantastic here. There was a Ghana game, Ghana friendly when we played. I think it's the best we've actually looked under Berhalter, where there was a combination play between or number of combination plays between him, Serginho Dest, and Balogun that I just think was unplayable, unguardable, unmarkable, whatever you want to call it. That is as good of a right side as we have looked in a game. Now, Ghana looks like they didn't even want to be in that friendly. Fair enough. Doing that versus anyone was impressive because we have struggled in that kind of department. So I like what we're seeing here, and Way is probably going to have to be really going to be a focal point, at least on the right side, and maybe have to do a little bit more than we've seen because he's not going to have someone like Des to kind of play off with because no one, I don't think anyone is afraid of of Scally having the ball. Unfortunately, Scally does very good defensively, but sometimes you do need that fullback to kind of give you a little different different look that makes the defenses kind of think a bit again. But anyways, so everything about this was positive. The quick build up attack, the way that Gio Reyna and Cardoza were able to quickly pass a field and carry it upfield. The quickness on display by Weah, the fluidity at the front line here, the way that you had all three of the attackers in kind of different spots. All of this was very, very good and promising. We didn't necessarily see this in the first half. We haven't seen a lot of this under Berhalter. And then the changes the chances kind of come for Colombia. So all of this was positive, and then here Luis Diaz has the chances in the box. Probably should have put it away. I did have a note here. Liverpool's Luis Diaz shows up. But, I mean, jokes aside, I think it is more unlucky than anything else. But I did defend Luis Diaz the entire season, so maybe not. But I also think he just doesn't look. He plays on the left side, and I think it's because he's very right foot dominated, and he doesn't like stuff on his left foot. And here, yeah, it's just he tries with his left foot, and it just he just misses. Uh, but here, the Robinson I think is trying to take on Munoz, and he loses the ball, so it's a turnover by Anthony Robinson. And here, I think it's Munoz or someone. It might be even James. Gets the ball, finds easy counter opportunity. They find Luis Diaz in the box, and he does a pretty good job to drag it to his left foot, and has a look for the far post, and a different kind of bounce. Easily could have been 3-1, and at that point, this would have happened before the changes. This kind of would have changed a little bit of the narrative. So some of that as well, but it also happened because just Robinson took a risk he didn't really need to do. Robinson didn't really have his best game, unfortunately for us. And so we finally get to the changes. So 60th minute mark, Colombia makes some changes. John Duran for Borja and Coruscant for Arias. And then USA makes some changes as well. Tim Ream off for Carter Vickers on. Now, I wanted to see Tim Ream come off. I wanted to see Miles Robinson, not necessarily Carter Vickers. And the more I see of Carter Vickers, I'm a little concerned because he doesn't seem to have a whole lot of flight of foot to him either. And he came on and did not have the most convincing performance. Now, it's not easy to come on as a sub. Fair enough. But again, it was just almost like every touch he had just seemed he was nervous, he looked rusty, whatever you wanna call it. Because like, the first thing he did when he came on, he tried to just collect the ball, and he missed it or slipped, and that could have been a chance for them to score as well, and then Gio off from Malik Tillman, and this kind of killed us as well. So we did well to get back into the game, and then the changes happened, and the note I have here is it's possible the subs were pre-planned. It's a friendly, it's a hot day in DC. You don't want to get cramps. You have Brazil on Wednesday, or quick turnaround there. So you understand him rotate, basically taking squad rotation very seriously. But at that set, it did kill our momentum, and we lost any chance to actually get back into the game or win it. And then in the 7th minute, more changes happen. So Colombia brings Diaz off, brings on Sinistera, and then takes James off of Quintero, who had a little bit better of an ability to press and cover more ground quickly, and that showed up in the second half as well. And then we took off McKinney for Musa and Balogun for Pepe. It you can't go with Pepe, but he didn't really do a whole lot to necessarily warrant. I'm advocating that probably he maybe should start the way that we play, but he didn't necessarily add to that kind of narrative building. But he didn't really have a whole lot of opportunity either. We weren't able to get him the ball, and a couple times that he did, get a touch or two. Maybe it was heavy, wasn't able to really hold on to it. Just the front line didn't really click after that. We didn't really create a chance after that. But it was more, in my opinion, taking Gio Reyna off. Malik Tillman had a real chance to prove himself, make a claim that he maybe deserves some playing time. He maybe is the player to play over Gio Reyna, or the player to replace Gio Reyna in the moments when Reyna can't go. He did not do that, unfortunately for us, and I'll get to that a little bit later on. So a few things happen after this change. So Tim Ream comes off, Cameron Carter-Vickers comes on, that shifts Chris Richards to the left side at center back, and we struggled after that change. So the first action is basically him getting the ball, carrying it too long, and he runs into trouble to turn it over. Why is he carrying it so long? I think he can't boot it upfield with his left foot. So I'm making an observation. Could be entirely wrong, could be unfounded, but that's just what I think I saw. Um, and just seemed mistake after mistake after that. And it just seemed, again, anytime he got a ball, basically, it looked like the first thing he was doing was to get it onto his right foot and to pass it sideways, maybe to go back into the middle where it was clogged. Every pass with his left foot, I thought was sideways. You never really saw him trying to boot it long. Um, and I am wondering if it is a case of him not having a strong left foot and not being comfortable with it. And then Cameron Carter-Vickers came on, equally struggled. Again, slipped with his first action, forced Turner to make a big save. They could have scored on that one. There's another moment when the ball just is kicked over him. I think it's by Carrascal. And Duran has a free sprint and basically forces Turner to run out, and he hands the ball outside the box. Usually, this could be even a sending off. It was just a yellow card as a friendly, but not great by Turner, and not great for just a ball over the top caught Cameron Carter-Vickers, and I'm wondering why. That to me is a problem. I want to see Miles Robinson and Chris Richards start for Brazil. We'll see if it happens or not. I think that's probably the strongest center back pairing that we have. I am a little bit concerned now that Chris Richards can't do anything with his left foot. So maybe you have to play Anthony Robinson a little differently. But as far as defensively, rest defense, whatever you want to call it, recovery defense, if you want to press high and play in a high line, that to me is the two best options. Now, the other thing that you can do is because Jeff Sargent apparently is injured, you can maybe scratch him as kind of an injury. I think you don't necessarily have to have the roster necessarily official until maybe like the tournament starts. I would just give Josh Sargent the Olympics, and I would immediately bring in Austin Trusty of Sheffield United because he is left-footed. Not had any kind of time to prepare with this team. Don't care. You need to have a left-footed center back that's not Tim Ream in the squad. So that goes again to Berhalter not really doing the best squad planning. So these are all kind of issues. This is at 2-1, and we've just seen Turner having to make a save, and we've seen Turner basically get lucky not getting a red card at 2-1. And then Colombia changed things up, and the first warning sign here is Musa has a risky kind of ball. I think he actually or is played a risky ball, and he turns and he's immediately attacked by Carrascal, crashes into him knee to knee. Colombia get a dangerous counter and nearly score on that, and then they do score. So again, this is where why this is a case where Richards, I think, not having a left foot cost us. To be honest, so after Colombia tried a long ball, we win it back easily. Richards has the ball, and he can't play it to Anthony Robinson. That's upfield. So he tries to squeeze a pass into Johnny Cardoza. Now Johnny Cardoza could do better here. He gets it's in the middle of the field, but he doesn't realize that John Duran is quite close to him, and he's able to do well to recover and get a long leg out, and he wins the ball back, and then Colombia break. With Sanistero getting the ball on the right side of the box, Musa is in position, so there were a number of ways to stop this from actually being a goal. But Musa can't get tight enough. A couple step overs freezes him, and Cedeseo was able to find a cutback cross to find Rios in the box. And another thing that's kind of annoying is Cameron Carter Vickers steps in front of it to get the block, and if not for the block, I think Turner probably does save it. That's also that is what it is. You can't really go at Carter Vickers necessarily for that. Turner's also guessing. That's the reason why he looked like he could have saved it. Turner possibly could have guessed wrong as well. The issue was more before the shot happened. So and it just came from a mistake. To me. So the first of three, really. I mean, Robinson is our left back, and he's trying to be an outlet. I understand, but if Richards can't get the ball to you, kind of pointless. Once your left back is out of position, it forces Musa to come back, and Musa's not really a left back. It wasn't great, but it was a sign of us not having any composure at this point on the ball, and there were a couple of chances where we had a chance to maybe do a little bit better. So Tillman gets the ball with like no one near him. He has a chance to maybe carry it, or that he has options anywhere he wants, and instead he tries a Hollywood pass trying to pick up Pepe and overhits it. Nothing happens there, and then at this point, there's also no one that seems to be able to get Tim Way of the ball. Way has gone a couple of 10 minutes or so without touching it, so he starts to run towards the ball for build up to help out, and that's where the third goal or the fourth goal comes from. So after a free kick, Tim Way gets the ball from Carter Vickers deep in his own end, has no one near him. Thinks he can do a move to get past the defender and gets caught. And again, it's not great. Carrascal has a very easy put away at this point, and it's just basically a guy trying to do a little too much, really. And it's another mistake by us. And then the third one is every bit kind of the same thing. So everyone has a chance to do something with the ball here, based on the fifth goal, and moves just doesn't want it. Passes it backwards. Richards passes it to Turner. Turner doesn't want to do anything. Gives it to Carter Vickers, and Carter Vickers is very annoyed. He's like looking at people. He's got his hands, going, and he tries to squeeze a pass into Luca Della Torre, who has since come on. And near the halfway line, it's an ambitious pass, and it's picked off. Luca Della Torre needs to do better at this point to be stronger here, though. He needs to recognize if he's not going to get there, he has to foul the person. You've just come on. You're not going to get a red card for this. It's in the 80 now. Maybe because he's just come on, he's not really thinking about it. But it's not great. I've wanted to like Luca Della Torre. Every time he's come on, we've had issues. He came on for Gia Reyna versus Germany a couple back in I guess it was October last year, and he didn't really do a whole lot to give me confidence then either. There've been a couple of games when he has been played well, a couple friendlies, but or maybe like Nations League games or whatnot. But it's things like this that I kind of that you think back on more than necessarily the good performances, unfortunately. And it was just it was mistake after mistake from us, and so there you go. Uh, so we get back into the game. It felt like maybe momentum had turned, and then the few changes did hurt us. I also think once Giordano went off, we lost our ability to play make in midfield. That was definitely big. Then Johnny Cardoza came off. Musa Gelatori came on. Just a few too many changes at once. Also, the Carter Vickers coming on for Tim Ream. Richards moving on to the left side, and Carter Vickers being sloppy didn't help either. So, uh, can you make the case that without the changes, maybe it is a different game? And if you're playing in a knockout game, maybe the changes don't come. But that said, by the time you're in knockout rounds, everyone's legs are going to be tired anyways. You're going to need to make changes. So I don't know how much I buy that argument. And another thing too is anytime that they were able to get a ball in a transition. They were sitting back on purpose. They would look as a tactic themselves, and they were very good to break up field. And I felt like any time that they were able to get Luis Diaz on an outlet ball or someone else making a run, we were very erratic defending them. Other than maybe Scala. Scala did a decent job, but when it wasn't coming on the left side or when it was Mojica making a run, we looked scared. And Turner didn't cover himself in glory either. Unfortunately, either with the saves or distribution. It was annoying to me that there'd be a few times when the ball would just be kicked back to him, and there'd be a couple easy outlets to to pass and keep the ball. Instead, he just booted either out of bounds or booted far upfield where we'd lose the ball. So that was kind of annoying as well. And there were a couple chances in the last few games, a couple chances for Mexico and Jamaica to punish us, and they lacked finishing quality. And here we finally played a team that didn't, so they were able to put their chances away. They didn't have a lot of shots, 15, and only 6 on target. We had 10 shots and only 2 on target. So on target's been a problem for us as well. We had more possession and more passes, but who cares? Again, it was almost like a tactic for Colombia. When you get the 2 goals, you can play the game however you want to play. But the number I have here is we were 3 for 19 crossing. 19 is on the upper end. It's not 19 is not egregious. 30 is more on the scary side, but 19 is on the upper end, and 3. We're only good at, we're only connected on 3 of them. And it feels like we cross the ball a lot with Berhalter. We cross the ball more than anyone in the World Cup, from what I remember with Berhalter. And it's a problem. It's a problem that we do it a lot, and we're not good at it. So we'll get started with the USA. See how we're doing for time here. It is probably what I would expect. Yeah, it is. So with the general thoughts on the USA game. At halftime, again, it wasn't that bad a case of maybe 2 defensive errors, so you can kind of go at it that way. Again, there were reasons for this to be defendable, and then everything after the 75th minute mark makes it a disaster. So there are a lot of reasons to worry. But I get the big optimistic take is it did happen after the changes, as I've talked about. But again, it goes to our depth. Our depth in the tournament is not good. I think that is if the one kind of question or the one kind of uh, I guess narrative that needs to be put to bed is maybe that, or maybe set in stone, however you want to phrase it, is that our depth is a problem coming into this, and I'm not going to even look at this as a 2026 warm up. I'm looking at this as this is our 2026 tournament, and we are not ready. And in 2 years, will that change or not? I don't really know. The way that we've been doing preparation, the way that things have been going under Berhalter, I'm going to make the case that things need changing. So at least for positives here, to be a little more optimistic, Gio Reyna was definitely a positive. Gio Reyna has been a positive pretty much any kind of game he has played in, and I'm going to get into how we played since Berhalter has come back. And it's kind of funny that it's just a couple of weeks ago or a couple of years ago, Gio Reyna was not playing for us when he was playing for Dortmund all those games, and we find out why what his parents were doing, and there's been this whole kind of awkward situation between Berhalter and him. He's I'm going to argue he is our most important player at the minute. And whenever he's taken off or whenever he doesn't start, we look different. And when he plays, we also look different in a positive. Johnny Cardozo was a positive. And I'm wondering, is there a way to maybe play Tyler Adams and Johnny together, or a Yunus Musa and Johnny together if Tyler Adams can't go, with Gio Reyna as the pivot. Maybe you find a way to play Weston McKennie differently. Maybe use him as a bench option, or you use him as the right back idea. Really now. Again, that is an experiment, and that is a scary experiment because it's one thing for McKennie to offer you some good stuff with the ball. Can he defend as a right back? That to me would be kind of iffy. But you're going to have to do something because I don't think Scally at right back is the best idea. And then Weah and Balogun, when they were allowed to play close to each other, was positive. So there's some of that. I need to stop seeing Tim Weah used as a wide creator in the box. I don't think it helps. I don't think it suits him best. I don't think it suits us best. Haji Wright came on at halftime, provided some decent energy. So there's some of that. I do think we did a decent job of Colombia didn't really play through us. So there can be some of that. When we got the press right, we were good at turning them over and good at making them go long. It was just our careless mistakes, screwed it up. So can that be touched up? Can that be explained away? Or was it more Colombia recognized a way to actually Colombia basically figured us out, and that's the reason why we turned it over. And because they figured us out, we're not, unless Berhalter changes, which I don't know if he can, that's going to be a problem. I think they recognize Chris Richards doesn't have a right foot. I think they recognize when Giorena isn't on the field, no one is there to show for the ball and do anything. I think they recognize that. So the concerns are there. The concerns are also with Tim Ream. And again, with the replacement not being in set in stone, is almost like you have to play him. And he has played well. I played well versus Mexico. But Mexico doesn't have the kind of pace that all these other teams are going to have. I'm thinking of Darwin Nunez versus Tim Ream, and it's not pretty. Um, or someone like Pelestri, for Uruguay, when we are paired with Uruguay in the group. The way that we press and play high, we don't need to go into that kind of repeating mode again. But it's if we don't get that right, we basically become what Man United has been with Harry Maguire, where we try to press high with the front three, we stretch the midfield, and then we're playing a deeper back line because we're worried about people making runs behind us. So instead, you allow the space in front of the back line where it puts us in retreat mode. That is not a good place to be in either. So it'll be entirely dependent on us getting that front press right if we play that way. Now, the other thing is you can play in a mid block, which is what other teams do. Now, that is what we did versus Canada a couple of years ago in the Nations League final. That would be an idea to actually play this way, but we haven't seen that kind of style under Berhalter, so I don't know if we will. Not having Serginho Dest is massive. Again, that right back is going to be a problem. And again, Anthony Robinson, you can maybe chalk it off as an off game. Hopefully it's a runoff. If not, that's gonna be a problem as well. Usually, he's actually our more important players, but also he's important because of how we use him on the wing. That allows Pulisic to kind of do what he wants to do. But by playing him that way, that does expose you. That exposes Tim Ream. How we've been playing hasn't been great. The midfield is reliant on Gia being a connector to connect everything. The attacking identity is not ideal either. So, a real quick look at Berhalter's tenure since he's returned. So, we beat Uzbekistan 3-0. We scored in the fourth minute. I think it was by Tim Weah. And then we don't score until the final 2 minutes. So, the 3-0 wasn't really convincing. Pepe came on, and basically he got the second goal. And then I think Giorena or Pulisic got a third. And then we beat Oman. What you were supposed to do, playing a team like Oman, took until the 60th minute to get that second goal. I think it was Pepe, or Pepe got the third. Uh, and then we had the big one versus Germany. And the Germany game was weird because there was a lot of positives after the first half. It didn't feel like a 3-1 game. We played quite well, and then Giorena was taken off. Luca Della Torre came on. It looked like the shape kind of changed. We tried Serginho Dest at left back instead of right for some reason. He couldn't handle Leroy Sané running at him. And basically, Germany outpassed us for fun. We weren't able to turn them over. We were sitting really back. We weren't able to be aggressive at all. We allowed them to have all this positional fun around us. Rudiger. I remember the back three was like Rudiger, it was Ta, and it was someone else, and they were basically just camped all over our inside our half. Basically, we had no way uh, to advance out of that, and basically, eventually Sane and Wirtz were able to dribble around us, and Fulkrug was able to benefit from some of that in the box, and so it wasn't really that great. And then we played Ghana, and Ghana's the one bright spot you can say. But we switched up. We switched up the back line. We played Richardson, Robinson, in my opinion. No Tim Ream. So our center backs were stronger at running for the ball. We played a higher line, so that helped as well. We played Johnny Cardoso and Musa together. In Germany, we played Musa as a single pivot, and he's not. He's not that kind of DM kind of player as well. So I like the idea of playing Cardosa and Musa, or maybe you can do Adams, and him together. I like the idea of playing two in midfields. You can kind of pack it a little bit, which is good because we need all the help we need in front of a very weak back line, in my opinion. But we were also very good on the attack in that game. Giorena was the connected with Balogun. Balogun had a terrific finish. Pulisic scored two as well. I think Giorena even scored two as well. But also Dest was terrific and making runs, playing off Balogun. Tim Weah was running into open spaces that Balogun was creating. Ghana looked like they didn't want to be there, but we were good. We were good in this game. And unfortunately for us, that's like the one time when I think we have been good. So the next two games are the Nations League games. And we beat Trinidad and Tobago 3-0. And you think, well, that's not too bad. That's defendable. But the first goal comes in the 82nd minute, and to me, this game is very similar to the Uzbekistan one, where Pepe had to come on and be a hero, and then Anthony Robinson, then Giorena. Gia didn't start in this game, but we also did a very we went into this kind of weak. Our front line was we didn't have Pulisic or Weah, so we played shoot. We played someone I don't even remember, and I think it was Malik Tillman as part of the other in the front three. It wasn't with like Balogun, and it was not ideal to say the least. And then we lose 2-1. This can be explained away because Serginho Dest lost his head and got a red card for being dumb. And that killed us for a number of reasons. One, Anthony Robinson had a very nice goal to get us the lead, and then Berhalter wanted to experiment, and it seemed like even though Serginho Dest took himself off, he wanted to still experiment. So we played Pepe and Balogun together. We did something very unique. We almost did like a 4-2-4 or like the 4-2-2-2 kind of stuff. We had two attackers playing next to each other, and it was awesome to see. But when you're playing down a man, you're playing with one less defender, and we looked exposed. We were playing with one attacker we really shouldn't have been doing, and I mean, we lose 2-1. It's not the end of the world. It's not really like anything was in jeopardy. But that was just kind of the case where Berhalter wanted to experiment. I like the idea of that, and Dest kind of screwed that up a little bit, and so we had to play the next game without Serginho Dest. So we have a friendly with Slovakia. No one of note played in this game. No reason to really talk about it. We went with a C squad roster. Berhalter likes doing that sometimes. Maybe it was during the international window when no one was available to play. I don't really know what it is, but not ideal. Slovakia is in the Slovakia might be in yours. I don't really know. But there's no reason to really focus on that game. The Jamaica game though is worth focusing. So the Haji Wright game and the Giorena game. So no Serginho Dest because of that. So we had to play Scally at right back. He's asleep to start the game. We can see in the opening minute. And then it takes the extra time for us to actually get the goal back. Otherwise, we would have lost to Jamaica, and we don't even make the Nations League final. Then Giorena came on a little bit in the second half, and we start to actually connect things. Haji Wright came on, and he was the absolute difference maker in the second half. And it was because of the through balls that Giorena was playing. Giorena created two unbelievable through balls into the box for both these goals. Two great finishes by Wright as well, but the through ball was every bit as good as the goal. And then we beat Mexico 2-0 thanks to a Tyler Adams wonder goal, not really what you expect. And then Giorena had a wonderful volley after Pulisic did well to get it up, had some magic on the byline. And then basically, Mexico can't really deal with the ball. The ball basically finds Giorena in the box, and he just decides to first time volley into the net. And then Mexico woke up a little bit, but damage was already done. So that's kind of where we're at. So the themes in those games were not really us starting well in any of them, and then maybe needing some miracle goals from Pepe or miracle creation by Giorena. So Berhalter in or out, it doesn't really help now because we do host a tournament in a couple of weeks. So is there a way to fix this or not? So things I'm going to mention, I already kind of talked about it a little bit. We need to find a way to be more pragmatic in our approach, whether we do a mid-block, as I said, or something else. I don't think we're good enough to play the way that we play with having both fullbacks kind of high upfield. Now with Scally, we're not necessarily doing that now, but we seem chaotic more times than not. Another thing too is we don't really the way we try to possess and build from the back. We almost do it at our own downfall in some respects. I don't think we're necessarily good enough at doing it. And you just saw in this game, we gave away 3 goals because we weren't we tried to do too little too much at the wrong time. So if you're good at doing it, then obviously it helps you. But we're not necessarily good at doing it. I also think Pulisic is a problem. A problem out of possession. I don't really know the best way to play him. But he doesn't really do much defensively on the wing. So he's going to if someone is able to play an overlapping fullback on that side, Robinson is going to have to deal with marking 2 guys because of that. Or you find a way to shift that on to a midfielder. But the way we play Gio Reyna, he's usually trying to mark someone in the middle too. He's not really trying to worry about what's happening on the wing. So that to me is a problem. And mentioned the Tim Ream stuff. Don't have to go over that again. To me, he's our Harry Maguire, someone that has been good in the past, someone that can still be good, but someone that is limited, and teams know how to recognize that too. I wouldn't be against him being maybe coming on on a bench, to handle maybe get some bench minutes or senior vet leadership in the locker room, things like that. But as far as being our starting center back, now, you can say that the international game is usually slower than a club game, but the way that we press like a club team. So it is a problem, and it's contradictory to the way that Greg likes playing. And unless there has to be a change, either Tim Ream gets changed or Greg gets changed. Greg's style gets changed. Basically, they're not going to change Greg. So that is a problem. Also, Cameron Carter Vickers was not convincing at all, and from until I see otherwise, I don't want to see him start over Miles Robinson. People don't. Miles Robinson might not be everyone's cup of tea. I think he's the best header in that we have. He's always been aggressive, in my opinion. Now, maybe he's not the best with his feet. I think he's as good at tracking back as anyone. He's got a really good motor on him. We need that. We need someone that can handle defending in deep spaces, in big spaces, the way that we play, a high line. So we saw it for Ghana. It looked pretty good. I think we saw it versus maybe Jamaica. It was we didn't see it versus Mexico. I think we saw it versus Jamaica. Uh, you need to experiment a little bit with that. Hopefully, we see that versus Brazil. And I don't think we played a Balogun strengths. I've kind of talked about that as well. Our offensive strategy, again, it seems to be more kind of hopeful crosses in the box than necessarily creating. Other than Giorena, Giorena seems to understand how to create. So can you find a way to actually play Ricardo Pepe more? If you're gonna create that way, you're gonna be reliant on crossing. I think Pepe should start over Balogun. I think Balogun's a better striker, but I just the way we're playing him isn't necessarily great. I don't think we're using Tim Weah properly, as I've talked about as well. But also from about like the minute 70th on, after we made all those changes, there were a couple of times when our midfield shape, when we're trying to build from the back, isn't ideal too. It almost seemed like everyone just wants the ball kicked forward to them. No one is comfortable kind of looking for the ball. No one's comfortable trying to get the ball and turning. Everyone's kind of afraid of losing it. So, there are a couple of times when Musa was getting the ball, he had no one near him at all any kind of option, and that wasn't ideal either. So, can you someone like a Tyler Adams fixes that? Everyone doesn't. People don't love Tyler Adams because he's sometimes way too careful with the ball. But one thing he does do, he never loses it. Tyler Adams almost has 99%, 96-ish% pass accuracy any game he plays in. He is very good at not losing the ball. He keeps it. If he can't go, then that is that is not good. Johnny Cardoza and someone, Johnny Cardoza and Musa. Whatever it is, uh, we could just have one person there because of that reason. They're just Musa can't handle it. I don't really think Johnny can handle it by himself. So we need to think of it that we need to think of things that way. If Tyler Adams isn't going to be fit for the tournament, we need to find a way to bring in another DM. And there is someone in Germany, Leonard Mahoney, I don't even know the name of the team. Finished ninth or eighth place in Germany, and basically started every minute for them. He's a 6'3", 6'4" defensive midfielder. We haven't really called him up once, so Berhalter's probably not going to do it. But there are roster spots, in my opinion, on this team. There's Josh Sargent, who it looks like he's injured, probably not going to be fit. Tyler Adams maybe is not fit. I'm not going to say drop Tyler Adams. Shaq Moore might actually need to be kept on because we don't really have a right back. I don't really love Shaq Moore. There's Malik Tillman's brother, who I don't think has played with us one time, and I guess maybe the idea is to give Malik Tillman some company. I don't think that's a reason to give a roster spot. I would take him out and I would bring in Mahoney, and you can do this until coming up. The Verona roster isn't necessarily set in stone yet, but you need to fix this quickly. But right now, we do not have a squad capable of doing anything in Copa. We're too limited. We're too imbalanced, too star oriented, and not good enough in the bench. So can Berhalter kind of fix that? So because of that, he does get blame. He hasn't done a good enough job, either setting up the team in games. He hasn't done a good enough job adjusting, in my opinion. He hasn't done a enough job of getting the roster set for these tournaments. So we're going into we're hosting this thing. This is our World Cup. This isn't a warm up. This is the real thing. And we're going into this almost like it's another Gold Cup. I don't like it. So, and then one final thing to say is Berhalter in or out. It's not just the coach, the people in charge of him that are hiring, the people that have been behind the scenes defending him, the people in our media. There's been a collective effort to kind of either basically to put all this on Berhalter, or two to just kind of basically to kind of shut any kind of anyone complaining out. There's been a lot of insider stuff that has been at play. I think collectively as a country, we need to relook at everything, really. And I'm going to look at how we develop youth soccer. So I'm going to go in a little bit of a different rant. I don't think it's a coincidence that our best outfield players, the people that are best on the ball, are all players that did not generally pick up the game here or develop here. They picked up the game in an academy system in Europe. I'm not saying everyone has to be in Europe. I'm saying we need to do a better job here. Now, until then, yeah, I do think people need to do it to develop outside the country. But another thing too, because someone like Musa, even when he was his first game when he played, when he was a 21, 20, or 19, 20-year old, his first game for the U.S., he got onto the field and looked entirely different than anyone that we've any kind of a senior player that we had played at that position at that point. Just the comfortability, the way that he almost looked to me, he reminded me immediately of Genie Ronaldo, someone that recognized how to use his body, how to shield for the ball. Uh, Someone that was handled being pressed, someone that handled how to get the ball on the turn, someone that just wasn't afraid when someone was within 5 yards of him with the ball. And I've started to notice that with the women too. On the women's side, we have a lot of midfielders. We saw it in the in the World Cup for them, especially when Roosevelt was out. We didn't really have, or other than Lindsey Horan, we didn't really have anyone that was comfortable with the ball at their feet. And here, just recently, there was in one of their friendlies, it was some 16-year-old came on and playing for Ajax, and she looked a world 11 compared to people that she was the person that she replaced. And just the understanding of spacing to control and manipulate the ball to avoid pressure. It just for some reason it's not in the majority of our squad. It doesn't look like it's in the majority of our women's squad. And is it an issue of our domestic league? Is the MLS maybe too open, where they're not necessarily faced with that kind of pressure? I can't explain it. Or the way we do high school soccer, the way we do college soccer, it's not like for like. I think we're missing a big part of the years of development when people that aren't necessarily experiencing that are benefiting tremendously. And so Berhalter in or out, that's been an issue I think for 15 years, and obviously I'm still complaining about it. So obviously it's probably not going to be fixed now. It's probably too late to do anything as far as 2026. But another thing too is before there was like this whole kind of I don't say collaboration or conspiracy between the some marketing thing with MLS and having a bit of a control on how the U.S. soccer is, and almost like U.S. soccer was a vehicle to kind of be an advertising vehicle or promotional vehicle for the MLS than necessarily the actual advancement of U.S. soccer. Maybe that's finally gone away. I can't really say. I mean, the way that we had, I think at least some agreement has ended, and since that partnership has ended, there's at least been some kind of changes as far as who's been called up, things like that. Uh, but that's been a problem as well in the past, and the people that have been again responsible for Berhalter in the first place, are they going to be the ones in charge making the replacement? I would be a little bit fearful of that, and that's not even going to see. I gave soccer reasons why Berhalter shouldn't be brought back. To piggyback, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. The way he handled Giorena was absolutely atrocious, and yeah, apparently his family was doing some blackmail, and maybe he blamed Gio for that. He was maybe a spoiled 19-year-old. Maybe he saw that someone like Josh, not Sargent, someone the Stanford guy, Jordan Morris, was getting minutes over necessarily him. Now, maybe that's not really the different kind of player, but he probably saw, or someone like Kellen Acosta was getting playing time versus Wales over Giorena, and Giorena even at 19 was one of our best players on the as far as on being on the ball. He only got what 8 minutes versus England, and didn't get any game time versus Iran, And there was all this talk about Berhalter lying to the press, saying he was injured, he was nursing an injury, and then his dad went out and said, "No, that's not the case." And then we find out that there was some blackmail happening, and then we find out what the blackmail was, and I don't really want to say the blackmail should have been rewarded, but we find out that Berhalter had some history that he admitted to, that him and his wife have been able to get past it, and it's not fair that that got aired in public, but at the same time it happened and they admitted to it, and we U.S. Soccer was like, that's okay, we'll still welcome you back. And if it was just weird. It was awkward. They said that they were doing some kind of coaching search. It's just come out recently that Lopetegui actually reached out to maybe be interested. We even had we went with a caretaker in Anthony Hutchinson. Uh, it was an interesting idea. At least he tried some different ideas, and then we tried BJ Callahan, and lo and behold, yeah, it wasn't all necessarily pretty. We actually played very pragmatic. We only had 30% of the ball in that Canada final, from what I remember. But we played in a low block, and we played Gio Reyna in a little bit more of a free roll, and lo and behold, hey, we won. Yeah, then Berhalter comes back, and we kind of back to the same kind of overcomplicated kind of system. So, anyways, that's where we are, and I don't really want to spend a ton of time on Colombia. I'll do a little maybe Copa kind of next week. So I'll talk about Colombia there. I mean, one thing I can say is they're on a heater. They're on like 19 games in a row, unbeaten. So that's good for them coming into this tournament. I thought their legs did look tired, but their managers made some pretty good sub changes. I like the way that they use both fullbacks. To be honest, it wasn't like they were both doing it at the same time. They were clever at it. I thought Munoz looked terrific, uh, and good good for Palace to have. He looks legit. I was wondering maybe he's just kind of a wing back that Palace used. He played as a fullback here, and he was equally as good as a fullback. He equally as good as defending. I think it was like 8 of 9 for his duels, which going against Robinson, that's not Robinson's quite good as well, in my opinion. And it was a good little 1v1 contest there. Um, the way that they have, James roaming, the way they have Luis Diaz roaming, maybe they don't. Maybe I don't necessarily know if Bore is good enough to score goals. I mean, but they do have John Duran to come on as a bench sub. This is going to be a team to watch. So I mean, they have Sinisterra to come on as a bench sub. And he looked quite good. So I'll talk about Colombia later on. But again, Quintara, James, Rio, Sabias, all players playing in South America right now. Not playing in Europe. Not playing in MLS. Just looking elsewhere for the football, and it hasn't hurt them. So at least here. So, anyways, that's kind of where we are. Kind of a little stretch for time, but here we get to the Euros preview. For the groups, we have Group A. So we have Germany, Hungary, Scotland, and Switzerland. Not the best group for Scotland, in my opinion. And Germany are hosting. Usually the host does well in this kind of thing. Hungary is going to be very interesting. Switzerland as well. Switzerland was able to make it out of the group stage for the World Cup last, back in Qatar, and then they got thumped by Portugal. I think that was the Gonzalo Ramos game. When he scored a hat trick and then didn't basically scored a hat trick and then got his move to PSG and then didn't do anything after that. Hungary to me is going to be very, very interesting. Hungary is led by Dominic Szoboszlai on Liverpool. But it's not just that. Hungary were kind of a fun team, fun little narrative team 3 years ago in Euros, because they tied France and Germany, but they only tied. They only got 2 draws, so they only got 2 points. So they ended up not being able to advance, and not being in that group with Germany and France wasn't really friendly for them either. Uh, but I think they're a better team now. And so, they're going to be able to maybe, look at that group and think they have a chance. They probably have to beat Switzerland, head to head, but, and we'll see. And then Group B, we have Albania, Croatia, Italy, and Spain. And if you're Albania, that's not very friendly either. A couple of third place finishes will advance. So there can be some hope there, maybe for either for Scotland or either for Hungary or Switzerland. Uh, but here Albania looks that's not really going to be friendly, because I look at Croatia and Spain as really two of the four kind of real contenders, and I'll get a little bit more into depth later. Italy is the defending champions. Italy wasn't able to make the World Cup, and they've turned around, and they're defending Europe champions, Euros champions. It doesn't feel like anyone's really talking about them, but you look at their roster and you can maybe see why. They don't have Mancini anymore. It's going to be a bit of a different team. Chiesa has had that ACL injury, which not ideal. It's they're led by Spalletti, the coach that won it with Napoli, won the Scudetto with Napoli. But it's a different team. So we'll see how they pan out. Good to see them back in a tournament. It's been a while. They've missed. I think they missed the last two World Cups, and then they were able to make Euros, and they won the last Euros. So that's not a fun group to be in if you're Albania. And then Group C, we have Denmark, England, jolly old England, and then Serbia and Slovenia. Uh, if you're Denmark and England, you probably like that. If you're England, you probably should look at this as maybe no issues. But we'll get to England soon. Southgate's England. That is the issue. Denmark also is very interesting because at the semifinal 3 years ago was England and Denmark. And England won because I think of a very late PK that they were given. Otherwise, it costly could have gone to a shootout in that game. It was maybe 1-1 with like a Damsgaard wonder goal, and then I think England got a late PK to actually win it in extra time. Uh, and then England ended up getting to the final, and then they scored the first game or they scored the first goal versus Italy, and then flopped flopped after that. They ended up losing on PKs, and I think at Wembley Stadium. So that's a little rundown of what happened last Euros. But you look at that, you look if you're Denmark, you have to probably like that too. Denmark, where everyone's kind of sweethearts, 3 years ago because of what happened with Christian Eriksen, and it's kind of cool that Christian Eriksen has been able to actually come all the way back. He featured for them in the World Cup, and he's going to be able to play in this tournament. And just you think back to what happened just 3 years ago, him just playing soccer would have been a celebration. Him being able to actually play in the tournament again is a fantastic testament to both the people that saved his life that day. So the defibrillators, the medical staff, just the modern miracle of medicine, like modern day of medicine, the way that we have pacemakers. I think he's playing with a pacemaker. So this is quite a unique story, and he's good. He hasn't gotten a lot of time to play with Man United, but I looked at his last game he played in a friendly. He was the main creator. SofaScore had him like for a 9 rating. So he's got someone like Rasmus Højlund to play with. Jokke Mæhle was good for them last year. Their midfield actually looks kind of stacked. Christian Nordgaard that I really like. Jensen of Brentford as well. They have Morten Heilmand, that has been doing some good things for Sporting Porto. Damsgaard, it's basically like the Brentford midfield, and then a couple others. So and then you have Christian Eriksen kind of in between. You have Andreas Christensen, who's been playing well for Barcelona of late, and Anderson of Palace. You have a lot of names that you recognize, and they I don't think were supposed to do what they did last year, or 3 years ago. And I did have them to actually perform well in Qatar, and they were actually one of the more kind of disappointing teams. So can they bounce back? Well, that'll be a bit of a story. And then we have Austria, France, Netherlands, and Poland. I just saw recently that Robert Lewandowski is going to miss the first game, so you're probably not liking Poland's odds. Austria is kind of a fun little story because they are coached by Ralph Ragnick. Everyone probably remembers him for the Man United times, but really what he is known for is he's almost like the godfather of this kind of Jurgen Klopp kind of Gegenspieler, kind of pressing that got started with the Red Bull kind of system and the Red Bull Salzburg system, and Salzburg, based in Austria. So this is kind of a full circle kind of moment, and he's got them playing quite well. To be honest, Austria is going to be a fun little story to watch. Mixed with France and Netherlands isn't necessarily ideal. France have basically gone like 6 years in a row being like top favorites coming into this, or maybe even more than that. Going back to 16, really when they made the finals that year. It was also hosted in France, and then they actually win the World Cup, and then I think they were favorites in 2020, and they just kind of flopped. That was a weird year though. They welcomed back Benzema. Things were kind of weird. You didn't know how Pogba was going in faction, and Pogba was maybe player of the tournament. And then they played Switzerland, and Rabiot was playing in midfield then, and just the Champs got things wrong, and then they turned around. So they got knocked out when they were favorites in 3 years ago to Switzerland, and I think a penalty shootout. And then everyone remembers what they did in Qatar. They made the finals, so they're again either heavy favorites or one of the favorites. and you'll see why when I go for their roster. Now that said, there is a bit of a glaring weakness, and they just played a game versus Canada, and again, it's one of those where is this a cause for concern because they didn't look great in their friendly versus Canada, or is it nothing? I'm going to argue this could be a case of concern, a cause for concern, because I think they're a little weak in midfield. I think when he plays, if it's Conte that actually starts, but if it's Camavinga, if it's Chouameni, if usually you play with Griezmann, so you only play with two. Uh, if you're not going to play with Zaire Emery, who, in my opinion, is one of the better players at kind of just being a bit of a playmaker. Someone that has an eye for a pass, someone that can find those Mbappe runs. I think you could find a situation where they might they could get backed in a little bit. They might be too reliant on an open game, a transition game. Mbappe has been kind of weird as well. Does he play on the left side? Does he try to play through the middle? Who's going to play left wing? Is it going to be this youngster Bacola, or is it going to be Mbappe through the left? And is it going to be Kolo Muani, through the middle, or Marcus Thuram? Uh, Christian Nkunku has been left out of this team. I think that was maybe a mistake as well. So we could see it does the Champs maybe screw up or not. France are going to be favorites no matter what. And then Netherlands coming into this, they have Ronald Koeman back. So that's kind of an interesting story. Koeman was hosting the Netherlands or coaching the Netherlands back in like 2019, and then he joined Barcelona, left him to join Barcelona, and Netherlands with Van Gaal, Louis Van Gaal back, was able to get to the quarterfinals versus Argentina, and everyone remembers that 2-2 game. It was 2-0, and then but Van Gaal was able to get them to 2-0. I mean, to get them to 2-all, and it went to PKs. As easy as the Netherlands could have been in the semifinals last year. Who knows what they do versus Croatia? So that's going to be an interesting story to follow as well. And then we have Group E: Belgium, Romania, Slovakia, and Ukraine. Belgium, I think, should probably be looked at a little bit more than they have been. I think it's probably the most. Uh, I think it's the most help that Kevin De Bruyne has probably had. To be honest, a couple of these times it's been one of those weird kind of phases where like you're trying to fit in both Hazard brothers. Eden Hazard was terrific in 2018. He was not good in the last Euros for them, and whether or not it's Romelu Lukaku or if you've got Luis Opendana, the striker that's at RB Leipzig, or if it's they've got a number of ways you can play Trossard through the middle, Trossard out wide. They have Jeremy Doku, and they also have Bakayoko. Two kind of fun little wingers to play with there as well. And you look at kind of defensive, it's maybe not going to be a Van Hal, Yanda Vertonghen and Todi Adewald anymore. It could be Wout Faes, which you don't really love hearing that name, but apparently he's been playing well for Belgium. And the fullbacks are kind of young and inexperienced. That could maybe be the one kind of slight concern. They do have Thomas Meunier, and they do have Timothy Castagne. So, I mean, there is some veteran leadership there, but I mean, just far as if they get into a game where Kevin De Bruyne gets the ball and he's able to create for again a Lukaku or an Opendana or a Trossard or Bakayoko or Jeremy Doku, uh, they're going to be a fun little team to watch. They also have Everton's Amadou Onana to kind of be a little bit of a do it all number six, an absolute tower of a man who's like 6'3", 6'4", who can cover all kind of distance in the world and also is technically brilliant with his feet. Belgium are a very, very interesting team coming into this. Romania and Slovakia, I don't really know much about, so I'm not really gonna pretend like I do. Ukraine, I think is interesting. Come to this, I think there's gonna be like a bit of a tier that I have as far as kind of underdog, kind of good vibe stories. Ukraine and Austria kind of fit into that. Ukraine have a number of players that really did have good campaigns that I don't want to necessarily went unnoticed because I think anyone that's like followed this is gonna recognize some of the names I'm gonna say. But and they were so close to making the World Cup in Qatar. They ended up losing a playoff game to Wales. I think it was like a Gareth Bale kind of a PK randomly that like had snuck in, or maybe it was a free kick that like just kind of bounced in. But Ukraine were in last Euros 3 years ago. They were knocked out by England. I think it's a better team now. Mikhailo Mudryk maybe doesn't do well for Chelsea. He does well for Ukraine. They have this guy. Is it Oster Dubovic? I can't say names. The leading striker is 6'2" striker for Girona, All he did was win Golden Boot in La Liga this past year for Girona. They have this guy Sirikov, who is a facey, pacey kind of either fullback, wingback, or even winger. Also on Girona, that had a good campaign. The way that they play Zinchenko is a little different. They play him in midfield because they have someone like Mikolenko on Everton. So, and they have this midfielder that can create a little bit for them, an attacking midfielder named Sudakev, who plays for, I believe, Shakhtar, who's been linked to a couple moves like Tottenham. Uh, there were this team is very, very compelling. I watched a lot of the U21 Euros last year when it was on ESPN Plus, and Ukraine nearly made it to the finals. They were knocked out eventually by England. But in that, so their youth team was good last year, and I think some of them have been kind of elevated. So yes, Ukraine is going to be one of those teams I think will at least make it into the knockout rounds, maybe even get a surprise. And then we have the group F. We have Turkey, Czech Republic, Portugal, and Georgia. Georgia have Kavara Valaskelia, who that'll be the last time I say his name. Everyone recognizes who that is if you've been following the winger on Napoli. But that's all I know about Georgia. Portugal, to me, is possibly one of the few favorites coming into this. And it'll be very funny if they actually end up getting this right. Now, the only reason I'm going to make a case that you shouldn't buy into Portugal is because of their manager. I don't trust Roberto Martinez. But Portugal, to me, is probably the most intriguing team to just kind of fall in love with if you're just looking at stats. And I'm going to get into that why now. I mean, key stats coming into this: the most goals scored in qualifiers were Portugal, 36. Then you had France, Spain, 25, England, 22, and then Belgium for 5 for the top 5. Goals conceded: Portugal only 2, France then 3, England 4. So that's positive for England. Croatia at 4, and then you have Albania, Belgium, and then Spain. Best passing teams. So you have Spain. Probably no one would expect otherwise. 657. Then you have Portugal. That is a little bit of a surprise because in for the last time I did a bit of a preview for them, or 3 years ago when I was doing stuff for Portugal, I looked at their midfield as being a bit of a weakness, and they've turned around and absolutely turned that into a strength. When I'll get to that a little bit more later. But 614 accurate passes a game, and then number 3 is someone that makes sense when you hear the name, but you probably wouldn't guess it. Is Croatia. 611 accurate passes a game. Then you have Switzerland and then France. And then most shots on target per game. You have France at 8, Portugal on 8, and then Croatia, and then Spain. And that to me is your four favorites coming into this. If I was picking a team that's going to win, I would pick those 4. That could be that could age terribly because it's not going to have the actual favorite, which is England, in it. I'm not going to have England as my favorite. I think it's going to be one of those 4. I mean, individually, we have Lukaku with 14 goals, leading everyone. That's kind of going a little bit under the radar as well. I didn't realize Lukaku was that good. And then you have number 2 is the sneaky pick for Golden Boot, and that's not going to make Messi fans happy. It's Cristiano Ronaldo, who's been scoring goals for fun in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, he was scoring goals for fun in Euro qualifiers. He's going to have the best team I think he's had to supply him service into the box in the boatloads. Bruno Fernandes has been unreal the last 2 years for Portugal. Now, the only question is, can you play both of them together and not be exposed? That's going to be the question that Roberto Martinez is going to have to figure out with. But just as far as just you get into a situation where Portugal are going to have so much of the ball because of how good they are with their midfield, where they're going to be able to just create in boatloads into the box. Where either it's Ronaldo, either it's Diego Jota, it's someone like Rafael Leao, being able to make some runs into the box. Just Ronaldo is going to feed on this, and he's still as big as he is. He's still a threat, and he's still a finisher. And I think he could possibly actually be the Golden Boot winner. And then you have Mbappe, probably no one's surprised. And then you have Harry Kane. 4 of his were PKs, but 8 still, so close for Harry Kane. And then you have McTominay, which is kind of funny. And then Rasmus Højlund. I think Højlund is very interesting as well. We haven't seen the best of him for Man United, but and what's funny enough is, Christian Eriksen is on his Man United team. I think Christian Eriksen can be able to feed off him. I think he's going to look to play in Rasmus Højlund. Christian Eriksen is going to get the Bruno role. I think we're going to see Rasmus Højlund have a really good tournament. That'll be a bit of a prediction. But anyways, that's how we are. At least that's how the group stage is setting up, and then we'll look at how we're doing for time. It's not bad at all. So we'll get started a little bit more in depth. So I'm not going to do all of these because I'm not going to pretend like I know everyone. But I will get started with England, jolly old England, as I talked about. The finishes for the last two tournaments. They've lost in the finals to Italy on PKs. Southgate, I think, lost in the game though. He didn't make a sub till the 85th minute. I think it was like Jordan Henderson. It had the lead, and then they played in a shell, and then they allowed the team with the better midfield to basically control the game with Jorginho and Verratti, and then they lose on PKs. So it is what it is. They had a chance when that was in Italy with Bonucci and Chiellini, and the ball over the top was on the entire time. You could have subbed on Rashford. You could have used Raheem Sterling. Whoever you would have wanted. I don't know if Ollie Watkins was on the team back then, but England never were able to play direct, never were able to punish Italy by having all that kind of possession, and they had the lead too after Luke Shaw got them the goal, and then they lost in the quarterfinals to France. Harry Kane with a crucial missed PK, but it was also a question of how Southgate didn't use the subs properly. He didn't use Rashford until late in that game, and then Rashford nearly had a free kick that actually got them back in it. And then the funny thing here is they finished last in their group in Nations League, and I actually think Nations League might be more important to look at than you World Cup Euros qualifying, because the funny thing is with Nations League, it actually forces these top teams to play each other a little bit more. You actually get a little bit more competition. It's not England versus Lithuania or Bulgaria, or not to go at those countries, but it's not San Marino uh, or I don't even know if San Marino's in in Europe or not. Anyways, Gibraltar. There we go. Uh, you actually see England having to face off versus Italy versus Germany, and in that case, it was Hungary, and Hungary got second in that group, and England got last. England were grouped, and Germany didn't do well in that tournament either. And I think the Nations League thing is a little bit more something to look at. So the last few games, let's see, they lost to Brazil 1-0. Indrick with his first goal for Wembley. They were able to get behind England's high line. Southgate does a little Berhalter stuff. And then you have they drew Belgium 2-2. Tony got a PK, so Harry Kane didn't start that game. Then Bellingham very late to actually make it, so it wasn't a loss. But Pickford messed up, but Tillman's got two goals there, and then they beat Bosnia-Herzegovina. Deceptive score. England struggled though in the game. Southgate also picked what most would consider maybe his B team. No Harry Kane, no Saka in that game. That happened most recently. It did not feel like a 3-0 kind of game, to be honest. No, Trent was tried in midfield. It was maybe they had a one goal lead, or it was 0-0 until like the 70th minute. They were able to tack on a couple very late. But Trent tried with midfield for the first time. It was okay, but he wasn't really being able to create for anything because he had Phil Foden, he had Cole Palmer. He didn't have, maybe it was like Anthony Gordon. He didn't really have anyone to play with. He had Ollie Watkins to make his runs for him. And Watkins, had a couple of times where he could have done a little bit better, but it wasn't good. And then, basically, Trent was moved, I think, at the very end to right back. They brought on Adam Wharton, and they finally looked better after those changes. So decent change there for Southgate, and Trent, I think, got the third goal. But that wasn't promising. That 3-0 scoreline was not a 3-0 kind of game. And then they lost to Iceland. Ramsdale let a cheap one in, so I'm not going to look at really the score. England did have chances to actually, win this 2-0 or 2-1, 3-1. They didn't put them away. I think though in this game you saw a lack of threat and ideas when Iceland got the early goal and they were able to defend in the box. The amount of times that Harry Kane wasn't in the box looking for a cross was a problem. The amount of times Declan Rice refuses to play a forward ball was a problem. The amount of times Kyle Walker was caught looking lost into the final third. Southgate looks like he wants to play Kyle Walker for his right back. I think it should be Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't like the idea of Trent in midfield, to be honest. I like the idea of Adam Wharton, to be honest, because Declan Rice needs someone else, and Trent doesn't have the reps to play in midfield. I think that could be a mistake, and I don't want him to actually be the donkey, him to be looked at as the reason why England crash out. But it's kind of stepping up that's possibly going to happen. Trippier looked uncomfortable playing left back. They don't really have an option at left back if Luke Shaw can't go, and that's on Southgate as well. It's been very weird to me that he didn't call up Levick Colwell. Maybe you can try Joe Gomez at left back and try almost like a back three. That would probably be the most, I guess, careful way to do it. You're not going to get anything as far as uh, any kind of output with Gomez, making runs down the channel because he doesn't really have a left foot. But maybe he can be a little more, defensive minded. But I think that's a problem. I also think the way that he's been trying to fit in Cole Palmer and Foden has been weird. One or the other, to be honest. And two, I probably wouldn't play either. Now, the problem here also is Phil Foden is England's pride and joy at the moment, and he's Player of the Year in the Premier League. And the reason why is he was able to get the ball from the right side, cut onto his left foot, and has scored countless goals by doing that, or playing through the middle. You have Jude Bellingham, who's probably going to be in that spot. So where does Phil Foden play? Are you going to really bench Saka? I think Saka is the best actual right winger. I think Saka offers more defensively, which Southgate likes. I think Saka is a better presser. I think Saka offers an actual like over the head, out ball, with runs in behind. I think you have to play Saka. So do you play him on the left? If you play him on the left, he can do a job there, but he's not going to be able to cut inside onto his left foot and be a goal threat because he'll be cutting onto his right foot from the left side. He can still create from doing that, but it's just there's kind of the issues that Southgate has. So kind of players to watch: Harry Kane. He needs to, he got 40 goals for Bayern Munich. I don't know how. He does have wingers to create for him. He had, Sane. He had Kingsley Coman, Alfonso Davies when he made some runs. He has Musiala, Leroy Sane, Matthias Tell. He has like elite, wingers to play ahead of him, and maybe they're able to get the ball in the field, and then he makes late runs. Maybe he puts things away that way. But he doesn't seem to be a player that's a number 9 that's looking to actually be in the box when a cross comes, or that's actually ahead of the ball when a ball is played to a forward. It seems like he's more behind the play. And you can deal with that. But I think by doing that, you almost have to play Jude Bellingham in that number 10 spot, because Jude Bellingham basically leaves that 10 and actually becomes your number 9 as Harry Kane becomes your 10. That's the only way to make this work. We haven't seen Jude Bellingham for a couple of these friendlies. So if you're an England fan, there's something for you to hold on to. And that kind of gets to the other thing. Jude Bellingham is going to have to be a massive, massive force for England to actually do anything, in my opinion. Now, he's shown he can do that. And that is kind of putting a lot of pressure on him. But that's the way that you play Southgate. The only other option, in my opinion, would be to sit Harry Kane, which isn't going to happen. You actually play Jude Bellingham as your 9, and then you play Phil Foden behind him as your 10. That's not going to happen. But another thing, too, is if Foden plays on the right, you're going to need someone to make runs for you if it's not going to be Saka. Anthony Gordon is going to have to be a player that actually shows up pretty big for them. The only attacker with pace outside of Saka that can play on the left side. And the reason that is big is Gareth Southgate has chosen not to include Marcus Rashford, which I think is a massive mistake, or even Raheem Sterling. So Anthony Gordon has been a fantastic player for Newcastle United. He was part of the England U21 team that ended up winning Euros last summer. It's still a lot to ask for this young player to come in and actually be your focal, either left winger, if it's not going to be Phil Foden. I think it's a lot to ask on him, and also he's not going to have any kind of fullback help if it's going to be Trippier kind of being the supply, the guy being the supplier. So he's going to have to do a lot on his own. So I don't think that's great planning by Southgate. And then the other thing too is just Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be interesting how he's used. Is he going to be played in midfield? If he is, I think he can do a job. I don't really love him there. I like him better as a right back, but maybe Southgate just wants Kyle Walker for defensive reasons. And if then Trent Alexander-Arnold has that ability to have that the Tony Cruz ball over the ball to pick out runs, but you're going to need runners to make that work. So that's why you need someone like a Gordon or a Saka, because Harry Kane's not going to do that. I don't think Foden's going to do that. Maybe Bellingham will do it, but so you need runners in that kind of situation. But also, you need someone with Declan Rice to actually be able to play some through balls to actually connect a little bit. Otherwise, England are going to be what I call a grocery store on someone on a diet. And so, if you've ever heard people talk about that, you go into a grocery store, you go down the aisles, you avoid the middle at all costs. That's where the junk food is. When England play under Southgate, that to me is what have that's what's been England. They avoid going through the middle. They try to attack down the wings because if you lose the ball in the wings, you're safer. They haven't had the ability to actually play through the middle. Uh, so that is someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold or even an Wharton of Palace do have that ability to see that pass through the middle. So that is that kind of setting it up with England. The positive side is again warm-ups are just warm-ups. They're not the real thing. We haven't seen probably a roster that Southgate is going to use. Now the other option he can do is Declan Rice and Conor Gallagher together, which I don't really love. You play maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back, so you can kind of invert him a little bit. Conor Gallagher can do a little of the recovery duty if needed. Conor Gallagher is probably one of the best pressers, and it seems like Southgate likes that. He likes people that do better stuff without the ball than necessarily with it. Which reminds me of someone that coaches another Anglophone team in us. There is a lot of Berhalter and Southgate similarities, and they don't just stop there. I think the questions at the back line, who plays left back for them? If it's going to be Trippier, if it's going to be Joe Gomez, if it's Shaw, that actually sorts itself out. But if not, you're going to have a problem. Uh, Again, Kyle Walker, Menace on right back. I don't really love. I don't love Konza being played at right back. Konza was played at right back versus Bosnia. That didn't really work out in my opinion. The left wing options, not having Rashford or Grealish or even Sterling. I actually understand Grealish. I don't think he's had a good enough season, but Rashford and Sterling not getting called up. The funny thing is, you go back 3 years ago, the two most important people on that side was Sterling and Grealish, and then the person that played as many minutes as Declan Rice in midfield for England was Calvin Phillips. And it's just that was only 3 years ago. It's funny how much that has changed. But also the other most important kind of spot that needs to be shored up is Saka. I think Saka has to start for your right wing, and the problem there is Saka I think has been overplayed. And how fit is he going to be for this tournament? I don't know either. If not, maybe you play Foden on the right wing and actually just instead of Saka, you actually play Gordon on the left, and you actually get your progression through Gordon, and you just play Foden in his preferred spot on the right, and Foden cut in off the right and try to shoot with his left foot. Maybe that's how you do it. I don't really know. Uh, the Declan Rice problem though is interesting because I don't think he's good enough on the ball, but he's so good defensively without it. You have to play him. And so I was wondering, could you actually try him at the center back? But we haven't seen that, so you're not going to do that. But the way England play a high line, maybe you could get away with that. Otherwise, you need to have someone next to him to play that pass, to play that through ball. So if it's not going to be Wharton, I guess maybe it'll be Trent. But another thing too is versus Iceland, they were using Declan Rice to almost press really high up, and what they were doing is it was leaving Kobe Mano to kind of be the guy to handle cleanup duty, and Mano's not really good at doing that. So it's very, very confusing the way that Declan Rice is used. It's kind of a shame that he hasn't learned yet to put that into his game because that is all that's remaining from him to actually be an elite player. He's still very good, but until he's not good enough with the ball at his feet, and until he gets that, it's going to be a glaring issue. And frankly, if I was a team that was game planning to play against England, I would mark everyone, allow Declan Rice to have the ball, make Declan Rice beat you because he's not. He's going to pass it sideways or he's going to go backwards every time. He's not, or he tries to do a little dribble and he leaves that space, which is beneficial to you too. So that's why I think Conor Gallagher probably there to at least offer some recovery runs. Maybe works better. Otherwise, either a Trent Alexander-Arnold or even a Wharton. Another thing too was, I get Grealish not being called up, but Grealish was not called up because Gareth Southgate wanted to give Cole Palmer and Eze spots. And I think you had the Olympics this year. You could have used that as an excuse to give either Eberechi Eze, which I like, but I don't think Eze is going to get any kind of playing time in the squad. So it's good to give him some experience, but I also don't think Cole Palmer should actually get any kind of playing time in the squad either, even though he's had a terrific year for Chelsea. I think they probably should have both been on the Olympic team. It's not a snub. The Olympics are still an important tournament, for youth development. Neymar, won the Olympics for Brazil, and it was a big moment, for their country. It's not a snub. I would have preferred having Rashford and Sterling both on this team than those two. But that's just me. So, anyways, that's kind of where we are. As far as what I expect, that I've already kind of what I said. I think my preferred 11 would probably be Wharton and Rice together. It's a lot to ask of Adam Wharton, but I think he's good enough for it. It is crazy how quickly his star has emerged. I didn't know who this guy was 6 months ago. I'm not gonna lie, and just every time I've seen him from Palace, he's wowed me. And he got on. He came on in the second half in that Bosnia game. He wowed me again. So he just seems like he doesn't look like a a British, midfielder when he has the ball at his feet. He looks like he's comfortable being pressed, and he recognizes, hey, when, he recognizes a little, passing lane to kind of thread something in, and he can play it. So, I like that. I like Trent Alexander at right back, Pickford instead of Ramsdale, obviously, so that helps. So, I was wondering, could you do a shape change? Could you do Konsa, John Stones, and Gomez, and then kind of a Trent, Wharton, Rice, and then Gordon? Gordon almost like your wing back, and then Foden and Jude as double tens with Kane. Uh, or maybe do Trent, Konzo or Gahey, and then Stones and Gomez, and then Wharton or either Gallagher or Rice, I guess, or I guess Wharton or Gallagher and then Rice, and then you have Saka, Jude or Foden, probably Jude, and then Gordon, and then Kane or Jude. So that's sitting possibly Foden or Jude. So it's a good problem for England to have, but if Southgate gets it wrong, he's going to be massively attacked, and it's what he gets for having the job, I guess. I think England have done a disservice for this quote unquote greatest generation of all time that they keep talking about for sticking with Southgate this long. I don't think he's done enough to have that job, and obviously they're going to finally move on for 2026. But this is the final call. This is the final time for them, and their best shot really was when they actually had the Euros finals in Wembley. I think this has come a cycle too late for them, but that's just kind of a prediction. Another thing too is it's very weird how he didn't call up Braithwaite or Levy Colwell. He instead has Lewis Dunk. He was gonna have Harry Maguire if not for then, and then he decided to do Lewis Dunk instead of Braithwaite or Levy Colwell. I think is absolutely insane. I think Levy Colwell's maybe better at left fullback, if you say, than Joe Gomez. I like Joe Gomez, but and anyway, so there's some. Those are the kind of the things that I'm thinking about. I don't think England are good enough as France, Spain, Portugal, or Croatia. So if they draw those teams, I don't think England's better than Ukraine at the minute. Maybe even I'd be curious if I'd be struggling to maybe pick England over Belgium at the minute. It's just there are too many teams that I feel like have less question marks than England coming into this. Now that said, they have been good in qualifying. They were not good in Nations League, and so we'll see. We'll see how it works. Can this team make another run? They do have the stars. They have match winners galore in Kane, Foden, Saka. I mean, Foden again, Player of the Year. Saka, Bellingham, Trent Alexander-Arnold. If he gets a chance to show off a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see how England do. And then we have Germany that actually host the tournament. They're another team that I think is going to be talked up in a convincing manner, but no one's really going to buy it. So Euros, they lost to England 2-0. That was the last game for Joachim Löw, and then Hansi Flick took over, and they didn't do well with Hansi Flick. They didn't do well in Qatar, and group staged out in the World Cup. So Hansi Flick no more. In comes Julian Nagelsmann. One of the few games that Nagelsmann had was against us, and looks good versus us. And then they drew 2-2 to, I believe, Mexico. And then they lost the next two to Turkey and I think Austria. So been a bit of an up and down, time for Nagelsmann. You look at the team; it looks very, very imbalanced as well. Whether it's Fulkrug or it's Havertz leading the front line, maybe that's not like the biggest issue, but it's more they don't have any kind of wingers, any kind of speed into their attack. It looks like it'll be Wirtz or Musiala. It doesn't look they have Adeyemi, maybe Leroy Sané, I guess, but it doesn't really look. Yeah, they don't have Adeyemi included. The fullbacks, it looks like it could be Kimmich at right back. We saw that versus Real Madrid. Kimmich did not enjoy playing Vinny Jr. Now that everyone has Vinny Jr., but at this kind of level, some people are going to have some pacey and attacking, creative wingers. So can Kimmich handle that if he's forced to? I don't know if he can. That it is hosted in Germany, so maybe that can kind of give this team a bit of a boost. They do have a different form, interesting form coming into this. So they beat France, Wirtz and Havertz with goals, and they drew Netherlands with Milistad and Fulkrug getting a goal, a late goal. Then they drew Ukraine, and then beat Greece 2-1 with Havertz and then Pascal Gross, who is going to be their defensive kind of midfielder. In some cases, it's been Gundogan. They have Pavlovich, but Pavlovich is very young. They have Anderlecht. It looks like they're not going to have Emre Can. There really isn't a lot of pace in the attack. I don't think Werner has made the team either. So those are the kind of things I'm a little worried about. As far as players to watch, Musiala and Florian Wirtz, two absolute stars that everyone is going to at least know of before the end of the tournament, whether or not Germany, goes far and advances or not. Jamal Musiala entered Qatar as like the best ball carrier in the entire tournament. He'll probably do the same thing. He's got legs, go gadget legs for days, and it seems like he's a focal point in Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann likes him having the ball and carrying it a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see him on display. And Florian Wirtz was one of the players of the entire Bundesliga, with fully helping that Bayern Leverkusen team win the title. So both will be on display. Both are very good when they played us, the U.S. In that friendly. So Nagelsmann wanted this job, and is it possible? Maybe in fact, he's even putting off maybe a top coaching job, a club job, to have this job. And Germany is hosting it, so we'll see. We'll see how it works. But again, there's a reason why it didn't work with Hansi Flick. I don't really think it was because of just Nagelsmann having the great touch. Germany just feel in a weird cycle right now. Maybe it's come a little too early for them with Musiala and Wirtz being so young. They don't generally. I don't feel like they have enough pace. They don't have enough dynamism in their attack. And then I'll move on to France. France, all they've done in the last two tournaments, so they did lose to Switzerland in that bonkers 3-3 game. They lost in a PK shootout. Mbappe missed a PK in that game as well. And then, let's see what I'm doing. But there was a weird there was something, there were ways to kind of explain it a little bit. The weird back line to kind of start it. Pogba was unreal that whole tournament, and then we haven't seen him since then. I think he was even the player of the tournament at that time. And then had a terrific goal in that game even. So I think they had a 3-2 lead, and then just Rabiot came on, and the back line was poor. And since then, all they've done is just grow world class center backs since then. So no more Langley, no more Kimpembe. Who I don't even know. He used to be on PSG. I don't even hear his name anymore. Now it is a who's who of Saliba, or it's Kanate, or it's Upamecano, and it's just a number of names even after that. So we're gonna. It's not going to be the issues that France had, at least in that Euros, is not going to be in this one. They also that was the tournament, and they welcomed back Benzema, and the chemistry was all kind of weird. They played Benzema instead of Giroud. It looked like Mbappe and Benzema just didn't really have chemistry either, and it was awkward. And so all they did in the 2 years later was they made the final, and Mbappe was maybe player of the tournament at that point. Got a hat trick in the final as well, and then just lost because of Messi's Argentina. Really the best finals of our lifetime, really. As coming into this game, or coming into this, their form is a little off though. So they drew Greece 2-2. Fofana and Colomouani. Moani scored in their 4 of the last 5 games. Then they lost to Germany. France basically lost to Germany 2 times in a short time span. They lost to Chile, I think 3-2 with Fofana, or they beat Chile 3-2 with Fofana, Colomouani again, and then Giroud, and then they beat Luxembourg recently 3-0 with Colomouani again, and then Klose had a fantastic goal, and then Mbappe at the first goal was signing for Madrid, and then they played Canada, and it was a 0-0 kind of game. They had more shots, but Canada had some chances to hit them too. Jesse Marsh's Canada, and that to me is more, again, if you're a coach, you always look on the bright side of things. No injuries, so some of that. I just don't think they're good enough defense, or good enough in midfield to connect. And so the players to watch: Mbappe, and Griezmann. Griezmann has been weirdly as important of a bit of a playmaker as Mbappe, at least in these international windows. And he's coming off his best season, I think, for Atletico Madrid. Randall Colomwani is going to be interesting. I mentioned how he's scored 3 of the last 4 games. The last time we saw him in a tournament, he nearly won France the whole thing in Qatar. He was the one that had that chance, and then it was an amazing save by Emi Martinez. Now, maybe he could have done better to pick a corner. Instead, he tried to beat him for pace. But Randall Colomwani, since then, has left Eintracht Frankfurt to join Mbappe at PSG and did not have a good season for PSG. But apparently, he's been playing well with France. And so, does Randall Colomwani does he actually have a chance to actually rewrite a little bit of the story about him that happened in Qatar? And it was almost not really fair that really was the story written about him instead of the story of him almost being a bit of a hero for him, being really, really young. He came on the bench versus Morocco and actually, got the second goal to help them beat Morocco, and that should have been kind of a cool moment for him instead. And instead, he had to go through the other thing. So I think Randall Colomwani is going to be a massive, massive player for them if France does well. And then Bradley Barcola being selected. Maybe the idea is maybe try Bradley Barcola on the wing and try Mbappe through the middle. But it's very interesting to me no Nkuku. And who's going to create for Nkuku here is who or Dembele. Dembele is probably going to be the player that starts on the other side, but maybe Barcola can play on either wing. So maybe that's why you include him. Tchouaméni, Camavinga, and then Conte. It looks like N'Golo Conte is back, which is after his season in Saudi Arabia. Conte did not look his fit self, I'll say, versus Canada. There was a player, Kone, on Canada that absolutely just kind of got the better of Conte and Camavinga. So, uh, who is going to play next to Tchouaméni or Camavinga? If it's not going to be Zaire Emery, I think they're going to have issues. To be honest, Zaire Emery is super young, but he's one that's not afraid of the ball. He's got a very good eye for a pass. Otherwise, France really have the situation that England have. Outside of the Harry Kane, now, you're gonna have people that makes runs for days, and maybe they just get away with that. Maybe they just get away with out athleting people on the wings. It certainly Deschamps has certainly found a way to be good in tournaments. So I'm not going to be someone that says you can second guess him, but I do think if France have a little bit of a weakness, it is that. So we'll see if it shows up or not. Also, how does Deschamps play Mbappe, Griezmann, and Giroud together if he does that? Because that's what he went with in the World Cup final. Giroud doesn't press. Mbappe doesn't press. Griezmann doesn't either. So that leaves you exposed a little bit out of possession. So is it going to be a case where Giroud actually sits a back seat to someone like Mbappe? Giroud is probably their best finisher. To be honest, as far as an in the box finisher, and without Giroud, maybe they don't even beat England. And Mbappe is in that weird situation where he doesn't know what he is, and he's joining Real Madrid as someone that's joining Vinicius Jr.'s spot at the left wing. Anytime that you've watched him, Mbappe feels like he wants to play on the left side. Uh, so you play in the middle, maybe you have less defensive duties, but you play in the middle, you don't see the ball as much. So Mbappe is going to have to find a way to become that number 9 instead. Maybe does a little bit less with the ball. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how it works. He did score recently, and he did have a good qualifying for them. And I'm not going to say necessarily he's washed or anything. So it's just those are the kind of things to watch out. The other guy that could maybe try is Marcus Thuram of Inter Milan, which we have seen in some games as well. So are France good enough in midfield? There are some interesting vibes about that, but again, 5th tournament in a row, heavy favorites, so they're doing something right. The other thing I was interesting about is it was I guess Yusuf Fofana would be another that they have in midfield, but I've been for the last couple of years, I've been surprised that Maxence Caqueret hasn't made it to the French squad. Now he's been making all the U21 U whatever. He'll probably be on the Olympic squad for like 4 years in a row. He's been the most progressive midfielding passer in the French league, and at least not just the rate he does it, but like the completion that he does it. And it's just that's what you need too. If you're not going to play Zaire Emery, Max Caqueret would have helped you out too. Almost like he's like a French Thiago in some respects. And it's weird how they've never really tried to use him. Now he is a little shorter of stature. Maybe that's why. I don't really know what it is, but that is what they're missing. They're missing something like that. So, anyways, that's kind of where France is, and then we'll get to who I think are the favorites coming into this tournament in Spain, La España. So the finishes for the last two tournaments, they semifinals. They lost out to Italy, I think in PKs, and then funny enough, after losing in the last couple of tournaments to PKs, they lost in Qatar to PKs as well to Morocco. So 900 passes in that game and just no dynamism in the attack, and that's changed now. Also, no more Luis Enrique, which I don't really rate anymore. We just saw him with PSG, not really, not do much with Mbappe. So it's changed now. You have a different manager, and you have Yamin Lamal, and you have Nico Williams, and you also have Arato Morata, who's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think he's just coming off his best season for Atletico Madrid. Scoring wise, he's very good in the air. He's very good at timing runs into the box, being strong in the air, being a target man. He makes runs into channels. He does really good work without the ball. You finally have a front line that is dynamic, that can play in multiple ways, and that's also you've got some depth to add there. And then behind that, you've got the best midfield in the game. And they're coming into this with pretty good goal scoring form as well, or pretty good uh, 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 pretty good form as well. So 3-1 wins versus Georgia. They lost to Colombia 1-0. Daniel Muniz with a goal. No Rodri in that game. No Nico Williams. No Yamal. No Olmo. No Morata. And then really the funny thing is in a game that they conceded 3 goals in Brazil, this is the game that made me see Spain differently. So it's not really usually it's not great to concede 3 goals, but here you see just the manner that they were able to score on offense. Lamine Yamal was just you see that he's arrived. Basically, he was amazing in this game. So Rodri scored 2 with a PK, and then Olmo, but Yamal was able to create for 2 of those moments. And then they beat Andorra recently 5-0. Probably what you expect. Ozalabal with 3 goals. He's someone that can come off the bench. It was really a bit of a kind of a bench lineup. Perez and then Ferran Torres. It's a bit of a rotated squad. They were only leading 1-0 at halftime, but then Northern Ireland in a game that they conceded first, and then it was 4-1 at half. Pedri and then Morata and then Pedri again created by Nico Williams and then Fabian Ruiz created by Yamal Cross and then Olazabal gets the 5th goal. So as players to watch, I already mentioned the two when Yamal and Nico Williams. You finally have some pace and dynamism on the wings, and you're not going to have either it's a Gavi, sometimes it's Danny Olmo, sometimes it's Fan Torres. You just or it was who was the player that you mean Piro something the guy that was on the guy that was on like Villarreal, Yermi Pino, I think. You're not going to have players like that. You actually have really dynamism on the wings. Speed, pace, 1v1 ability to break in. You've got Alvaro Morata, someone that's going to be a threat in the box. Ferran Torres can do a job. Danny Olmo can do a bit of a false 9 job if you need. And then you have someone like Pedri, who's finally coming into a tournament that's not injured and looks to be in fantastic form. If I'm going to make a prediction, I think he's player of the tournament. So we'll see if that pans out or not. He didn't have a lot of games for Barcelona. He's been injured forever. Going back really 3 years ago when he overplayed. He got overplayed through Barca. He played every game for Barca. And then he played in Spain's Euros, and then he played in the Olympics. I just think he's going to be special for them if Spain go far. And then you have the best midfielder in the world in Rodri. So he's going to be someone to look at too. And the only concern is it's no Paul Torres, no Eric Garcia that's been selected. The back line could be Nacho, who did well for Real Madrid, and then someone like Le Normad, someone on Real Sociedad. You also have Laporte, who you can maybe try the fullbacks, though. Could be Marc Cucurella or Alex Grimaldo, or it could be Jesus Navas, who's like 38 years old, or Damian Carvajal, or Marcus Llorente. But the fullbacks are kind of a bit of a I don't want to say concern, but just a little different. Not filling me with a ton of confidence. But that said, so that maybe the fullbacks aren't really going to be able to help out as far as any kind of creation other than maybe some crosses here and there. But you've got 2 wingers that can create anything that they need be. And again, this is going to be a team that does not lose the ball. They're going to have their 800 passes, but they're also going to have ways to actually be threatening on the attack. So it's possible this is a cycle too early for Spain, but youth and inexperience is the only thing that I think is a knock against them. And so, and I do get the argument that that inexperience or experience, experience, is the most important thing in these kind of international tournaments. I'm going to side with a talent over that. So I think Spain should be your favorites coming into this. Can Murata lead this attack? I think he can. Um, and just it's probably I think it's the most I think it's the strongest Spain side have been since 2012 coming into a tournament. You know, the best DM in the world in Rodri. Luis Enrique was playing this monster at center back. So there's no need to do that now. You have willing runners off the ball in Murata and Nico Williams, even in Yamal. Creation in the boatloads if they need it. No more Koke experiment. Pedri looks back to his best. Danny Olmo can play as a connector, as a 10. Midfield depth. Fabian Ruiz had a good, strong second half of his campaign for PSG. So as Rodri needs some help, you have Mikel Merino of Sociedad. You also have Mato Zubamendi. Fermin Lopez can offer a goal threat if need be. So I really do like the Spain team. So we'll see if that ages terribly or not. But you know, at least you saw in qualifying they were good. They won the Nations League, and I mentioned how I like the idea of Nations League being a bit of a barometer than necessarily World Cup qualifying because you get to see them play better teams. So they've been close. They were close last year to making the finals as well. They just missed out on PKs to Italy. Um, is this a cycle too early? Lamine Yamal is 16 years old. Uh, I don't really love the idea of writing that, but he doesn't look like he's 16 years old, and the way he's been playing, he's really not. It's almost like someone's a freshman until they get to like the end of the season, and then they're not a freshman anymore. It doesn't feel like this is going to phase him, but we'll see. Maybe that could be the only thing that actually happens. Um, and then we'll get to the other favorite in Portugal. So they finished in the last couple of tournaments. They lost to Belgium 1-0. A big theme in that game is Portugal's midfield just was not good enough. They were too open. They didn't seem to understand how to use Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva. I think even like someone like Renato Sanchez played in that game. It was like Daniel Pereira, played in that game. You didn't have what they have now. They have elite talent in midfield now, so they're not going to be as open. And in my opinion, and then they lost to Morocco 1-0 in the World Cup. And Ronaldo was benched for that game for Gonzalo Ramos because Ramos had the hat trick the game before. And that was a mistake because Ramos was very poor, and then Ronaldo came on and just couldn't rescue it late. Uh, and then they lost. I think they lost out to an unbelievable kind of header by El Nasri, kind of a Ronaldo-like goal. So the form in the last couple games have been quite solid. The only loss is Slovenia over like 14 games. Undefeated in qualifying, scored the most goals. 2-0 win over Iceland. A 5-2 win over Sweden. They lost to Slovenia. Pepe played in the back line, so some of that. 4-2 win over Finland. And Diaz, Jota PK, then Bruno Fernandes. They were a little sloppy after that. A couple changes happened where I think Bruno didn't even start. It was like Yao. It was Paulinho. I like the midfield that actually started. It was Vitinha, Paulinho, and Yao Neves, and it was quite good. And then the only problem is the player that's been the most important player for the last 2 or 3 years has been Bruno Fernandes, so you have to fit him in. So he comes in, they score 2 goals, but they also get a little more opened up. So there's give and take there. And then they lost to Croatia recently as well. Dallo looked lost defending on the right side, but he's been fantastic for Man United, so I don't know how much of a problem that is. In the Finland game, it was Cancelo that actually played on the right back side, and they tried someone else on the left. But here, I mean, this game could have been actually a higher number than it was. Both keepers were actually fantastic. I mean, Croatia did dominate though in the half, and then a couple changes happened. Jota came on, Cancelo came on, Semedo came on, Rafael Leal came on as well, and they were able to get back into the game. And then after they ended up losing on there was a shot kind of banked off the crossbar where Bedimir was able to finish away. Weird starting lineup, Felix, Gonzalo Ramos, and then Bernardo Silva at the front line. And the midfield was Paulinho, Vitinha, and Bruno Neves was set in this game. And Croatia kind of walked over them a little bit. So a little bit of a wake-up call. Maybe not the best front line to start with. I think Rafael Leal needs to start for them. Ronaldo probably is going to start for them too. So Jota is going to have to come off the bench. And I don't really know what you do at right wing. I don't really know if I love the idea of maybe you can try Jota. I don't know if I love the idea of Bernardo Silva. That can be an option. I would probably maybe think about Bruno. and Bruno just kind of cuts off and just plays in the half space anyways. But that's maybe the one kind of negative, and that way, if you did that, you could actually fit in Paulinho, Yao Neves, and Vitinha. So, otherwise, I guess you could just do you could just do a Paulinho and maybe Neves, and just maybe sit Vitinha. I don't really know. You also have Bernardo Silva to either as an option in midfield or right wing, or you have Mateus Nunes. I mean, they're strong. You have Pedro Neto as well. Actually, that's probably what you would do. Pedro Neto on the right wing. To have you have speed and pace on both wings to create for Ronaldo. Um, there's reasons to think Portugal are the strongest team coming into this, and the only again questions coming in are, can Bruno and Ronaldo play together, or does it expose you too much out of possession? That's the reason why Ronaldo was benched in 2 years ago, and he's gotten he's gotten older. If that can be fixed, this is the strongest team coming into this. Now there is an if there. Uh, fullbacks, are they good enough with Dallo, Cancelo, and Semedo? Now that can be maybe argued as well, but defensively in the back line, Ruben Diaz and shoot, who's the other? It's Antonio Silva. Uh, it's a strong. It really is. There are not much weaknesses in Portugal other than the manager in Roberto Martinez. He doesn't really have the best track record. So does that show up or not? We'll have to see. But Portugal, there's a lot of reasons to like Portugal. And kind of went over them. And then let's see how we're doing for time. And then I'll move on to the team that actually Roberto Martinez was recently a coach of in Belgium. So New Belgium, so coached by someone different now. No more Hazard brothers as well. Finishes in the last two tournaments. They lost to Italy by 2-1, and then they were grouped by Morocco and Croatia in in Qatar, where Lukaku came into that tournament not being really fit, and that kind of showed up. I think it was either Benteke or someone. Actually, Lukaku actually had some pretty bad misses in that game, from what I remember as well. The form, though, in the last couple of games is good. 8 wins and 2 draws in the last 10 games. Drew Sweden, beat Serbia with a Carrasco goal, and then beat Azerbaijan by 5. Drew Ireland, and then drew England 2-2 with the Tielemans 2 goals. Recently played Montenegro and destroyed them, or beat them 2-0, but game could have been 8-0. They were quite good in that game. And then to beat Luxembourg, Lukaku with 2 goals in that game as well. Players to watch, not a surprise, but Kevin De Bruyne, I think he's going to have the best supporting cast he's had in a while. The attacking wide creators, or Jeremy Doku and Bakayoko. You've got 2 players that can do amazing stuff 1v1 to get by someone and create and just cross into a Lukaku or Opendana. There's a lot of reasons to actually like Belgium as well. You can try Trossard as an option as well. You have goal threats everywhere in Lukaku, Opendana, and Trossard. So people that can put the ball in the net. The midfield, I think, is as strong as it's been in some time as well, with Mangala, Tielemans, Onana, Veerman has played well in the friendly game that I watched. It might have been Montenegro. Onana and Mangala and Tielemans. That's quite good. It's quite a good steal to have if you want. And the only kind of issue is, at least in the game that I watched, Carrasco started and was not. He could have had a hat trick by like 20 minutes, and he actually was very wasteful. So does he start instead of a Jeremy Doku? That could be something to maybe watch, or even a Trossard. Defensively, no more Vertonghen, but so you have no more from Ryland as well. The Arsenal and Barcelona player. You have Arthur Thiet and Wout Faes. So it's not ideal, but Ralph has apparently looked good for them. They are young at fullback, so outside of Castagna and maybe Vermaelen, nor Courtois as well. So that could be maybe something to look at. But Kevin De Bruyne possibly could be player of the tournament because he's going to be able to all those balls that he likes playing in. He's going to have runners to run into those and to create. They made the semifinals in 2018. I think it's a better team now. That run in semifinals, or that run in 2018, was reliant on Courtois being Herculean great and Eden Hazard also being individually dribble mastermind. I think this team is a little bit more balanced. So we'll see if that pans out or not. And then the other team I'll get to is Netherlands. So they finished the last 2 tournaments and losing to Czech Republic in the 2-0 game. It was very weird because Delik got a handball and that kind of just sealed it. And then they lost to Argentina in PKs, as everyone remembers. But that was also Wout Weghorst came on, and then just everything suddenly changed in that game. But they still lost. The form coming into this, 6 wins and 2 draws in qualifying. Recent losses to France and Italy. Beat Ireland, beat Gibraltar 6-0, beat Scotland 4-0, thanks to Malin, Wanghorst, Ronaldum, and Rangers. Lost to Germany. Velman, bit of a rotated lineup. So, Daley Blind has been playing in some of these, and I don't really love that. They have Ake, Gertruda, Van Dyke. They have a number of options to play. You have Timber to play in the back line where you don't really need to play Daley Blind, in my opinion. So hopefully that's not a thing that happens. Otherwise, that could actually show up. And then they did beat Canada, 4-0 recently, and they beat was it Iceland? They beat someone yesterday 4-0 as well, so they're on good form. Frimpong was amazing versus Canada. Just someone that Canada just had no answers for at all. And Frimpong's coming off a fantastic season for Leverkusen as well. He's going to be a player that could possibly be a young player of the tournament nominee, and Jeremy Frimpong. Depay scored in that game, and Wanghorst then and Van Dijk got a couple late. A couple plays to watch for. Cody Gakpo, someone that I know it from Liverpool, but he plays a little bit differently when he plays with Netherlands. He's allowed to play a little bit more on the left side. I think it suits him more. Memphis Depay seems to always kind of show up when the national team calls up. And Xavi Simons as well is going to be someone that had a pretty good season for RB Leipzig, and he's a little bit more of a creative kind of fun player as well. And then Jeremy Frimpong, as I mentioned, because he might be played as a winger, an attacking player. He might not be played as a wingback or fullback. And then if you get into a situation where they actually they're down a goal and they need to have someone to cross something in and just kind of be hopeful, you do have 6'6" Wout Weghorst still. So well, I think it's better than people perceive. But we'll see. And they also have a youngster, Brian Broby. Might be just kind of there for the ride. Probably a little too young at the minute. But we'll see. We'll see how this works. Just the only concerns are Frankie De Jong is not going to be able to play for them. It looks like. So is their midfield good enough? So you have Rangers, you have Ronaldum, you have Veerman, who on PSV, who apparently is quite fun on the ball, quite fun on the turn. Was one of the more adventurous passes of the at least in that league. He's a very ambitious passer, and you also have Schlotten, also at PSV. I guess 2 teammates there, but neither are Frankie De Jong. So does that end up hurting them or not? Gini Wijnaldum being back, Ryan Gravenberch is also on this team. I don't think he's going to necessarily play, but he did look good for Canada. He can maybe be a bit of an option, so we'll have to see about that. How does Ronald Koeman handle his first tournament back in charge? The last time he was in charge, he got them to a Nations League final. I think they lost to Portugal, but yeah, and again, this team was close back in Qatar, and Van Dijk is still quite good. He's actually scored the last 2 games for them. I do think this is a team that maybe has a few more questions than answers, so I probably wouldn't put them in. I'd probably put them in more the uh, Germany, England, maybe Italy kind of bracket where you're going to talk about them, or even Belgium. You're going to talk about them. You're going to play the idea, but probably not a pick to win it. But I could be wrong. We'll have to see. And then I teed it up with Italy. I'm defending champs. I'm probably not going to be that high on them. They are the defending champs, and they're considered one of the best sides in the tournament as far as out of possession under Roberto Mancini. They pressed as a club, as they said. They controlled possession, as a team like Spain with Jorginho and Verratti. But also one of the third members of that group was Locatelli. Locatelli's not even on this team anymore. It was a different team then because they had Chiesa. Chiesa was a different player before that ACL injury. They also had Spinazzola. Spinazzola didn't even make the team here. He also discovered he hurt his ACL in the tournament. I think it was versus Spain in the semifinals. And he was maybe the most important player at that point. It's one thing to have a lot of possession and a lot of passing. You need to have runs in behind to keep a defense honest, so not everyone can just crowd on you. That's the problem that Barcelona sometimes has. You have all this, tiki-taka stuff. You need to still have a threat in behind just to keep someone honest. That's what Spinazzola was offering them last year. I don't know necessarily if Italy have that still. I think that still can be a concern. And then World Cup, they didn't qualify. And again, it's just very interesting how quickly things have changed in 3 years. Someone like Insigne was an important player for them last year. He's not a part of it now. They had to rely on Cesar Immobile, and I don't know if he's necessarily still part of the team, but It looks like the people leading them now are Scamacca, who had a pretty good season for Atalanta, and then Matteo Retegoni, who played for Bologna, only scored 4 goals in the season, but apparently he's on good goal scoring form for Italy for the last 2 for the last 3. So they beat North Macedonia 5-2, drew Ukraine, beat Venezuela 2-1 with Regatoni and scoring the 2 goals, and then they beat Ecuador with Barella and Pellegrini, and then they drew Turkey recently. So players to watch for. You got to talk about the defenders when you always talk about Italy. So Pistoni and Riccardo Calafori, a Bologna player that's probably been linked to everywhere now. Everyone kind of knows who this guy is. Looks like he's probably going to go to Juventus, so he'll be a player everyone knows at least when he goes to Juventus. If not, he's been linked to every kind of EPL club possible. If people don't know about him now, they'll know about him when Italy plays. And then, Scamacca, again, played well for Italy. You also have Matteo Regatoni. You have Nico Barella, who always seems to pop up for them. But that's kind of where it goes. I mean, they're back in an international tournament, so that's good after missing 2 World Cups. But it does feel like it's a different team. Now Spalletti has been a good manager. He's shown he's a good manager. He's very good at actually, uh, doing the underdog stuff. Italy, sometimes when they get into these kind of tournaments, are good at being underdogs. When they made the finals with Conte back in 2012, they weren't really a team that was talked about. So we'll see how Spalletti does with his turn with the Azzurri. Um, again, he did very well with Napoli, but it is also a tough group for them in Spain and Croatia. So that's not necessarily ideal. And then some other countries to kind of interest. Do I not have Croatia to talk about? I haven't necessarily mentioned them yet, and they're one of the teams that I actually really like. So that's a bit of a mess up on my end. So we have Austria, and then okay, we have Austria. There we go. So other kind of teams, quickly talk on Austria. Kind of mentioned it with Ralph Ragnick. So they knocked out in the round 16 to Italy. Funny enough, they probably were the team that played, other than Spain, they probably played Italy the best last Euros. So they at least that was interesting in that end. They gave them a scare. I thought they gave them a bit of more of a scare than England in the final. So Austria was close 2 years ago, and then they didn't qualify for the World Cup, but only 1 loss for the last 10 games, so good form. The loss being Belgium, but beat Sweden, beat Germany, beat Serbia and Slovakia. All those teams are in the Euros. So players to watch for: David Alaba, if fit. Is always kind of a fun player to watch. Sabitzer, we just saw him have a pretty good Champions League for Dortmund. Bumgarner is a big player that seems to show up when you look at who's been scoring the goals for them. Player for RB Leipzig, and then Nicole Seewald and Conrad Leimer, two players I think also on Leipzig, and then Michael Gigerich, a 6'4" attacker for Freiburg. I think he's the leading goal scorer for them. He's going to be someone to watch as well. And then he doesn't play a lot of games, but Alexander Prass of Strum Geretz was a player that really lighted up or kind of showed up the last game that I looked at whenever they played. It might have been Slovakia. He kind of showed up a little bit. So that's kind of the storyline. And the thing to think about is, Italy just a couple years ago were known as the best like pressing side in the competition. Them along with England, and that kind of pressing structure was able enough to get them into those were the 2 finals. So Ralph Ragnick, Paul, is very similar, and apparently they have been talked about kind of the same way. So do we see Austria do that? Do we see a bit of a upset here, a bit of an underdog? We'll have to see. And then we get to Croatia, and the finishes for the last 2 tournaments. They had to draw Spain in the round of 16. Otherwise, they probably would have done a bit of a run here as well. This was the year when Pedri basically passed it back, or someone passed it back into his own net, so they actually had the lead, and then they lost like 3-5 in a crazy game. And then everyone knows they lost to in the semifinals to Argentina in Qatar. And then they lost in the Nations League finals. So they're a bit of a Cinderella in some respects, and always being left at the ball. Close but no cigar. It's probably the last time for Modric to have a shot. A 38-year-old Modric. Do his legs still have enough in him? If the answer is yes, this is a team to take seriously. 7-3 for the last 10 games. The losses to Spain in the Nations League final, and then Turkey and Wales. Bullied Latvia 2 times, beat Armenia, beat Tunisia, and then beat Egypt. So not really the teams probably you expect to beat. But also they recently beat Portugal. So that was impossible. That was impressive. Yeah, players to watch for. You have to go with Modric. So Modric, Kovacic, and Brozovic are back again. So that three is as good at keeping the ball and just killing out games as we have really ever seen. That three, at least internationally, is making a case they are as good. Well, obviously, Spain won, but they're making a case that they've been as consistent and as strong a trio as the Busquets, Xavi, and Iniestas of Spain. And they haven't always had the strike force to go with it, and that's kind of the only negative. You look at them. Kramaric is their leading goal scorer in qualifying. He didn't score much though. They also had Budimir, who's a 6'3" striker for Osasuna. He was able to help them beat Portugal. And then behind them, they do have some interesting names as far as people to bring on the bench. You have Petrovic, you have Pazlovic, and you have Lavaro Mayor of Atalanta. And well, I don't know where Mayor plays actually anymore. Pazlic plays for Atalanta. Uh, but Mayor looks very good with Portugal. And he's been someone that's been. I remember him a couple years ago when he was on Rennes. I don't necessarily know if he's still in the French league or not. He's now 26 now. It's kind of unfortunate. I can't call him young anymore. But he interested me a couple years ago now, and apparently he's still part of the roster lineup, and he's going to be someone that I'm going to be at least watching because they're going to need to find goals from somewhere. Because that as good as that front three is at keeping the ball, they don't score. And that is you look at every kind of metric that Croatia has is they're with the Spain, they're with France, they're with Portugal in everything but goal scorers. So they're going to need to get goals from elsewhere. Established defenders, you have Josko Gvardiol, you have Stanisic, Perisic of Tottenham. Livakovic was the keeper, it was fantastic. Versus Brazil back in Qatar, he's back. And again, they have a way to control the ball and tempo as good as any team not named Spain. And again, they match up in every metric but the goal. So are Modric's legs good enough to do it again? And because if you think about it, it really is as impressive of a run as anyone really outside of France. Unlucky to draw Spain again in the knockouts, but they make the finals in 2018. They lose to France, I think 4-2, and they made the semifinals in Qatar, and they have another chance. They're as good. They're a country or team that understands tournament football as good as anyone. So do we see it again? And that's probably the last team I'm probably going to spend talking about. You have Switzerland, Serbia, Hungary. Hungary, I guess I could talk a little bit about. They've only lost 2 times in the last 17 games. Wins over England, Germany, Greece, Estonia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Turkey, and Israel. Damir Szoboszlai and Salai, two attacking mids to create for Varga, who seems to be their kind of striker ahead. You have Milos Krikos, bombing forward wingback that we've seen for Bournemouth. Again, very impressive in the Nations League, and I do value what you did in the Nations League a little bit more than what you did in qualifying, but they qualified easily in Europe as well. We have Denmark, kind of talked a little bit about them already, story of the tournament last year. Do they have a chance to be a bit of a same underdog this year as well? Christian Eriksen is a do-it-all player. He still seems like he's got some legs in him as well. We'll see if that's the case. He's going to have a player that's going to do the running for him in Rasmus Højlund. So he's the leading goal scorer with 7 goals in qualifying for them. I think he could have a big tournament. I think we haven't seen as much of Rasmus as he's capable of offering. Just Man United didn't play to his strengths. I think Denmark is. So that'll be my little mini prediction there. Again, Norgard, Jensen, Højbjerg of Spurs, and then Morten Højbjerg. Damsgaard, Brun Larsen of Burnley. So midfield does have options of recognizable names. Anderson Christensen has been playing Barca's DM. Does he play DM for Denmark as well, or does he play in mid, or does he play at center back? And so that'll be kind of the thing to touch on with them. The last hurrah. They do have a decent group to at least advance with Serbia and Slovakia and England. And again, that could be the fun thing. They get a second chance at England? So do they take it? And then the last of the underdogs is Ukraine. So again, the thing I talked about, the 3 tiers that I look at, the good vibes underdog story bracket. So you have, let's see, you have Denmark, you have Ukraine, you have Austria, you have Hungary, all kind of in the same kind of vibe a little bit. If there's one to maybe uh, praise more than one than the other, I think I would probably lead towards Denmark, but I like Ukraine as well. And then you have the near contenders, but not really, in my opinion. You have Netherlands, Italy, Germany, Belgium, and then England. If you have to pick one that's maybe going to pop out of that group, I would think it would be Belgium. And then you have the contenders, in my opinion: Croatia, Portugal, Spain, and France. I'm going to go with Spain, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But to end it, we have Ukraine. So the last few tournaments, they weren't able to qualify for the World Cup, and they were knocked out by England 3 years ago. Form for the last 5 games, they drew England, lost but they lost 2-1 to Italy, then drew Italy again, so Italy back to back, drew Germany 0-0, and then wins over Iceland, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and then North Macedonia. Lots of players again did have some pretty good campaigns for them. So you have Dojbik of Girona, you have Simikov as well, bit of a pacing winger. You had Mudryk, you have Sudokev, and you have Zinchenko and Malinowski. So there is a lot of reasons to actually think, it could be time for Ukraine to actually come up and given how everyone knows how the country has faced some hardship, there's going to be reasons for that country, that population to maybe have some reasons to distract themselves or to have some uplifting. I think this team is good enough to not just be kind of a feel good story. I think to be a legit good story, just because of competition wise. So we'll see if that pans out or not. As far as to kind of end it, we have some players to kind of watch on for smaller countries. See how we're doing for time. I'll probably have to cut this a little short. I keep kind of checking it a little bit. Um, yeah, I'm going a little long. So some players to kind of watch on. So we have Kvaratskhelia, Georgia, Benjamin Sesko of Slovenia. I don't really know anything about Slovenia, but I know about Benjamin Sesko, who's going to get a shot at England. So that could be kind of funny. I think he just turned down joining Arsenal. Dominik Szoboszlai of Hungary, Gregory Sudakev of Ukraine, and then Jeremy Doku and Bakayoko of Belgium, and then Christian Aslani of Albania. I didn't really talk about Albania much. Apparently, they've been one of the better defensive teams in York World Cup qualifying. But Aslani is a 22-year-old of Inter Milan who apparently is one of the better attacking players. So gotta watch out for him as far as kind of a breakout star. I'll start with Yao Neves and Vitinha, the two Portugal youngsters. Jeremy Frimpong of Netherlands, Adam Wharton of England if Southgate plays him. Warren Zaire Emery of France. Again, France is going to need someone to break lines. He does it, similar to Adam Wharton, in my opinion. So it's very funny how they're in the same kind of boat. And then again, other than Mbappe, Colin Mourani is going to have to probably show up for them to actually do stuff. I already mentioned Lavar Maillard. He's not really young, but at least he could be a breakout player. People don't really know of him yet. Spain's two attacking players, Yamin Yamal and Nico Williams, feels obvious. Pedri as well feels obvious. When he's on his game, he's the best. He's one of the best midfielders in the world. If not, he makes an argument for being the best, and he's going to be fully fit. I think he's going to have a good tournament, so we'll see how that pans out. And then Germany with Florian Wirtz and Musiala. And then let's see, the international game can be slow paced, and so does that help out for the veteran stars of an Ericsson and Bruno, a Modric, Granado, and Giroud? We'll have to see how that pans out, and then kind of the end to end it with. Things I'm going to be looking for: teams that control the game with possession, that tire teams out as a tactic, teams that have a transition threat. So you can't just be one or the other. You have to be balanced. Teams that are very good with the ball defeat. Teams maybe going to have teams sitting in a low block, and defenders are going to have the ball a lot. Do you have defenders that are good with the ball at their feet? Fullbacks. What team have fullbacks or wingbacks that have an advantage to give you a bit of a numbers advantage in the attacking third? That's one of the things that Portugal have. They have they have one of the best options of fullbacks of anyone. France have an interesting combination with they also have Mendes, PSG's Mendes. That's another player I haven't mentioned. So that's one of the reasons to maybe like Portugal a little bit. Are we going to see, or obviously, who's best at not conceding? And who, if someone does pack the center, are you going to have are the wings going to be open like we've seen in the club games? So what countries are good enough attacking down the wings? Belgium, come to mind. France, obviously, come to mind. I think with Rafael Leao and Pedro Neto, I think Portugal come to mind. And then with Yamin Yamal and Nico Williams, Spain come to mind. So we'll see if that pans out or not. And so it would be kind of funny if Portugal does it because Ronaldo winning it after Messi winning the World Cup. They do have a lot of reasons to like them. Again, just midfield options: Polina, João Neves, Ruben Neves. Haven't mentioned him, and just attacking Ronaldo, Jota, Rafael Leao, Felix, Neto. And the only problem is you can't play them all at the same time. So how are you going to manage getting them on the field at the right time? That is where Roberto Martinez has to struggle with. So we'll see if they do it. Spain are probably my favorites for reasons that I already mentioned. You can't argue that the cycle is too early, but we'll have to see. With France, I just feel like Deschamps is probably going to get stuff wrong, so we'll have to see if that pans out or not. And then Croatia, they're either, in my opinion, a Cinderella where the midnight's already struck past, or they have one last dance, as they say. I'm not going to entertain England, so we'll see how that pans out. But that's it. That's where we have for Euros preview, and went a little long, so I'll probably end it there. And thanks you for sticking this long, and I'll just pan out. It's not going to be a 43-hour episode, but it's going to be 2:30. Anyways, thank you for joining, and until then, you stay squatting and stop recording.